On Saturday, July 13th, 2024, a man attempted to assassinate Donald Trump, a former president and the frontrunner for the presidential election this year. He ended up striking several people in the crowd, killing one man, a father and a firefighter, Corey Comprador. It's a sad story. Many people say that he missed. He missed Donald Trump because Trump survived, but Trump actually did get hit. Now, I know most of you know this, and we do have new developments. It's being reported now that the police were informed of this man on the roof for 26 minutes prior to the attack on Trump. Now, initially, over the weekend, we didn't know exactly what happened. Some said it had been about 40 or so seconds. Then we learned it was 2 whole minutes where people were screaming, a man's on the roof, and police and Secret Service took no action. We're now hearing reports that it was 26. This raises a lot of questions, especially with reports that the roof the man was on was a staging area for police. So how could this have happened? That this man had a line of sight directly to Donald Trump, 130 yards away. Police were warned over and over again, and not one law enforcement officer in any way simply said to their radio, "Get the president off the stage." Not one. Fortunately, Donald Trump tilted his head just a few seconds before the shot, and the bullet instead ripped through his ear. He fell down. Secret Service surrounded him. He stands up, raises his fist covered in blood, and screams, "Fight, fight, fight." Things are certainly getting insane. The rhetoric, of course, has been crazy. Joe Biden gave a statement on the matter. And we do have some more updates, and we'll talk about the response from Democrats and from many progressive activists. And then we do have more news, of course. Donald Trump has announced J.D. Vance is his vice president. So we're going to talk about that and so much more. Before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and support this show. Check out Ian's Graphene Dream, the latest coffee blend. We also have Alex Stein's Primetime Grind. If you like the work that we do, you can buy Cast Brew coffee at castbrew.com. And also head over to timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member to support our work directly. All of you as members make this show possible. Without you as members, we would not have this show. We will have a members-only uncensored show, which, for obvious reasons, will be substantially more spicy. And we'll take calls from you, our members. So if you sign up, submit your questions, you will join in the show. And I'm sure many of you have a lot to add to this. There have been a lot of interesting ideas. There's been a lot of things that people haven't considered. And I know you guys have some interesting thoughts. We'd love to hear it from you. So again, timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Natalie Winters.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I picked a slow news cycle day to come on the show.
Who are you? What do you do? I
am the co-host turned, I guess, temporary host of Stephen K. Bannon's War Room, formerly an investigative reporter. I'm also the executive editor of our website component to the War Room brand, and always honored to be joining you guys.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out. We have Viva Frei as well.
Tim, thank you for having me again. Everybody, nice to be here. Who am I? Everybody knows. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, lawyer by trade, 13 years of practice, wound it up, do legal political analysis commentary, and what a world we're living in.
Absolutely. Libby is here.
I'm here. I'm Libby Emmons. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Post-Millennial and Human Events. Glad to be joining everyone out here.
Elad Eliahu is here.
What's up, everybody? I'm a field reporter here at Timcast News. Happy to be here.
And, of course, Hannah Claire Brimolo.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimolo. I'm co-hosting the show, and I'm a writer at scnr.com. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. Let's get started.
And just so all of you know, we're here live at the RNC, and in one of the many locations. You may have noticed the cameras look, for those that are watching live, we all look a bit yellow. We are in like a 1970s conference room where we're going to be doing our live show. So head over to timcast.com. There are a few tickets, just a little bit, still available if you want to come to our live show Thursday, the finale of the RNC in Milwaukee. If you're around, then pick up your tickets at timcast.com. Let's jump into the first story, of course. And we'll begin with the image that is going to be in the history books forever. This picture of Donald Trump that was taken by, I believe the man's name, is it Evan Vucci? Maybe his name. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. Credit to this photographer. And Donald Trump, surrounded by Secret Service agents, pulling him from the stage, raising a fist with blood streaking down his face and the American flag in sight. This is the iconic image of a president who refused to be stopped, to refused to be put down. But there's breaking news and there's a lot of information. I got to be honest. We got to go through all of these photos and let me see if I have this. Where is the?
This photograph is going to be iconic for
Forever.
the rest of American history, and it's going to be defining of what is an evil regime versus the good that's fighting. It's which is the one, the raising the flag?
The Iwo Jima photo?
The Iwo Jima.
Jima,
It's as iconic as that. It looks like the Cosmos scripted it to look
Well, if
similar.
you were watching this live, if you were watching that, which we all watched live and then watched clips of, I'm sure, what I thought was really so amazing in that moment was that the Secret Service tried to keep him down. And he said, you could see him saying, wait, and then raise his fist and say, fight, fight, fight. And you had a lot of Democrat pundits and leftists saying, this was defiant and all of this stuff. But I thought it was something more. I thought that it was reassuring. It was actually calming. It was actually a moment of optimism, because what he did was he said, I just got shot, but we're all here. I'm still here. I'm still going to lead us forward. You're still here, right? For the most part, except for the tragic story of the one man who did pass. But he basically gave us all a sense of optimism and hope. And we needed that in that moment. It was reassuring. And it reminded me of after 9/11, I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and we got the feed from New York, the local New York One feed. And Rudy Giuliani got on TV and he said, alternate side of the street parking is suspended for tomorrow. And I thought, that is calming. That is reassuring. That is, tomorrow is coming. New York is still here. Everything is still the same. Don't worry about moving your cars, everyone.
Yeah.
And I got a similar sense, different, but a similar sense of we are America. We are here. We are strong. We are still moving forward. We are not put down. And I loved that about it.
I think you could hear that in the crowd too, right? They're screaming, there's anxiety. And when he stands up, you get that USA chant, right? There's this moment of rallying around Trump and what he symbolizes as a country, because this will be one of those things where everyone says, where were you when you heard that President Trump had been shot in Pennsylvania? I mean, it is going to change the course of American history the same way that 9/11 did or RFK's assassination did.
We always, once we have a complete picture of what happened, we reflect on things a little differently. The moment this happened, my phone is lighting up. I pull up the feed, and all I know is I was told Donald Trump had been shot. And I'm like, is he going to stand up? He grabbed his neck and collapsed. Is this it? And then I watch him stand up. Secret Service, he's screaming. And I'm just floored. We're hanging out in Milwaukee, and I was just enjoying a nice Saturday recreation. The studio was driving into Milwaukee. Nothing was set up. We didn't even have keys to the room yet. I'm hanging out at the poker tables. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody was paying attention. And what was terrifying to me was, as this is happening, I'm sitting at this table where everyone's just playing a game and not paying attention. And there's a man to my left who's a local politician. And as soon as it happened, my phone's going, and I'm looking down. I look over to him, and we both look at each other, and I'm like, did you? He's like, yes. And I was like, holy. Yeah. I wondered to myself, and I said, how come all of the TVs in this casino did not just change? How come the intercom did not just come on? And the manager said, ladies and gentlemen, we hate to interrupt your entertainment, but an assassination attempt has just been made on Donald Trump at a presidential rally. I feel like that, to me, is what that sounds like what would happen. Like, you should know this.
Yeah.
And no one knew that this happened. TV was on, and they were watching baseball and basketball, and people were completely oblivious. But to the point you were making, as soon as I saw it and I pulled up the photo, the guy across from me goes, right alongside Iwo Jima.
Yeah. I think that really is the impact. I mean, because we live in a digital age, these images move faster, but also get spread farther. And to think that this is going to be the image we walk away from this moment is actually amazing, because, again, to contrast with other tragedies we've had in American history, I mean, sometimes it's the car speeding away, right? And instead, we got this clip of Trump saying, let me get my shoes and wait, and then connecting with the crowd. Look, he's leaving with dignity. This man is bleeding from his ear, and he's like, I am walking out kind of on my own terms. I know there's questions about how Secret Service reacted. It's not my area of expertise, how long he's on stage and stuff like that. But Trump really said, he acted like the leader of the free world in that moment.
He did.
He said, I am sending a message.
This morning we had Brian Glenn on, and we were walking through his kind of firsthand experience at the rally, and something that I hadn't really seen reported really anywhere else. He said that once the initial shots rang out, that a lot of people in the crowd, he was like 30-40%, they turned around and they started yelling at the media, saying like, this is your fault, you guys did this. Even Fox News too, they were like going all in on them, which I thought was something that was interesting. But I also have to say too, I think President Trump was so right to use the words fight, and I know a lot of the kind of prevailing theme that we've been hearing at the RNC, which I've been all day, has been this concept of unity and coming together. And obviously we're not calling for violence, but I think you have to make the point that you can't have unity and you cannot unite with people who fundamentally want your movement and want you as supporters of President Trump, supporters of the MAGA agenda, either locked away in prison like they're doing with Jan 6ers, or in this case, dead. And I don't think that unity is really the word right now, because if the tables were turned and it were a Trump supporter who would try to shoot President Biden, you would not be hearing the word unity. You would see the media going all in on anyone MAGA, and it'd be a very different, tune.
This is how it goes every time. When we watch the Summer of Love and the far left engage in this like low tier terrorism. And once again, we've maintained the entire time we have to win through the process because they're the ones trying to destroy the process. We have to uphold and maintain a legal system because they are the ones trying to tear it down. And we had a caller last week say, how do we do this when, with the arrest of Steve Bannon and Merrick Garland skirting his criminal charges and getting away with it, how do we function? And we have to keep trying to play through this system because they're hoping that we abandon these rules. They're hoping that we give up on our system.
Well, Emma Jo Morris at Breitbart, she said something really smart on Twitter today. She said there's always this expectation that Trump has to make some gesture of unity with the establishment, but never the expectation for the establishment to make that overture to Trump.
Yep.
And I think that that's really huge because we see that. We saw Biden saying, everybody cool it down, vote at the battle boxes, pray for former Trump. And he had all this stuff out. And then when the White House was asked today if Biden was going to tone down the rhetoric, he said no, because he doesn't actually have any plans to. He wants everybody to be quiet, let him continue spewing his propaganda. And that includes telling Trump and all of Trump's supporters and all of conservatives in the country that they are wrong, horrible people.
Many in the media often do say we're on the precipice of civil war, and they're usually wrong about it. But I really think we were an inch away this time from something really scary.
Perhaps a millimeter away.
Extremely. The thought of Trump actually being assassinated would be would be very dangerous for the country. Obviously, the Republican Party is Trump's party at this point. So the thought of him actually being hurt and killed, I think it adds to the legend of Trump, and it solidifies the legend of Trump. He was going to win, obviously, before this, but now, obviously a shoe-in.
I'm the Canadian here, and I'm watching this, and I'm watching the videos over and over again. And, I've watched the JFK assassination. It was violent. It was graphic. It was deliberately publicly displayed to rub in the face of the people, humiliate them, and demoralize them. Had it been that, I'm thinking this is how I would write my name somewhere down to get recruited for. If it were send me off to battle, this is where that would be my line in the sand. But the most amazing thing about that image, everybody's got a caricature of Trump. He's got his red, his orange, with his hair, his tan. That moment where he's red in the face with rage and commitment, and you don't see him as the caricature anymore. That is the human. That is a man who they just tried to kill him. There's no, I got the best words. That's a man on a mission now, and you see him as the human and no longer the caricature, and that's the image that's going to be there.
And you start thinking about his family too. That was one thing I thought. I've been on Laura Trump's show a few times, and she shares pictures of the grandkids, and you see his family out there. They're very vocal, and you're just like, oh my goodness, imagine seeing your father,
I had seen a report, and I don't think it's true, that Barron was right in front. And I think that's not true at all. But again, you have that moment where you think, if Trump stands up and puts his fist and says, I'm okay, it's for America, but I'm also sure it's for his family. I mean, we saw Melania's statement where she was like, please remember.
That was a great statement.
I thought it was really interesting, and I think it's so poignant of her style. I think it was beautiful.
I also think the timing of all of it, like you were saying, what was it, a difference of literally 1 millimeter ahead till he was reportedly looking at, charts depicting illegal immigration. But I even think if you take it back to way long before this, I mean, had Democrats and establishment Republicans not put him through the trials and tribulations of all the lawfare, the attacks that they have put him through for years since 2016, he probably would not have been talking about what he would have been talking about in that moment. Who knows if he would have even been in Pennsylvania, because his campaign rally schedule could have been different, because he wouldn't have been stuck in a New York courtroom. Right? There are so many things that the Democrats put him through that got him to be standing at that stage in that moment, to be looking back, tilted to the right. Like Steve said, from prison, he had the armor of God in that moment. But when you really, I think, trace it back all the way to 2016, it's mind blowing.
There are a lot of people who are highlighting the American flag, flipped over in itself and inverted into the shape of a cross. Maybe that means something. Believe what you want, but I want to say that while they're saying that Donald Trump there was some kind of divine intervention here, the idea that Donald Trump tilting his head by a millimeter saved his life.
To look at the Jumbotron.
To look at a Jumbotron. The odds of this, of everything playing out the way it was. And I think to myself, this is like crazier than the plot of the silliest cheesy action movie.
Right. It's the only positive thing illegal immigration has done, which is give Donald Trump that chart to look at.
Where Donald Trump, within a few seconds, he's turning to the right, he's talking to people, and then he tilts. And had he not, he would not be here. It's remarkable to think about all of the circumstances that led up to that moment where that shooter was able to get the shot he did. And simply because Trump tilted a slight bit more, it foiled the plan of that man. Now, I want to jump to this story. We have new information which will shock all of you. I have WPXI.com news. Alleged Trump shooter spotted by law enforcement nearly 30 minutes before the shots were fired. The official number is 26. It was 5:45 p.m. Someone called it in. They took a picture of the person. They said that they have learned from a source that person in the picture is Thomas Crooks. We're told it's not clear if he had a gun with him at that point. According to multiple sources, a law enforcement officer had also previously seen Crooks on the ground and called him in as a suspicious person with a picture. 26 minutes after the second picture of Crooks was taken by law enforcement, the second, mind you, and the information was called in, shots were fired from the roof of the American Glass Research Building. Seconds later, a Secret Service sniper returned fire and killed Crooks. Now, there's a lot of questions as to how something like this happened. And it's very hard. And I know the media is going to attack and insult me and everybody else. It is hard to believe that this is a lone gunman who got lucky. This defies all logic. A clear line of sight within 130 yards of the front runner for the presidential election. And not once in a half an hour did a single law enforcement officer say, suspicious man on the roof, get the president off the stage. All they had to do was click their walkie-talkie and say, get Trump off stage, security threat. Nope, nobody, not one person. Corey Mills brought up that when, as a former sniper, when they would do these assessments with Secret Service, they track what are vantage points at 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards. So I'm supposed to believe, and the American people are supposed to believe, that in this instance, a crazed lone gunman had a ladder placed up against a building where police were staging, climbed onto the roof, was seen by two law enforcement officers who took pictures of him, encountered another law enforcement officer who saw him on the roof and backed away, was identified by members of the crowd and by Secret Service, and no one did anything until he literally shot Donald Trump.
It's impossible to explain away. I can steelman a bit of it, and I'll steelman it knowing that I don't believe it. Somebody on a roof just trying to get a better viewpoint of the president, suspicious, but not terrible. But you could see in the videos now, and we know all these facts, that one sniper had him in his scope for an extended period of time. I don't know how you assemble an AR-15 once you get on a roof, but it's not something that takes a nanosecond. Mm-hmm. It's clear. This was a Lee Hop, a let it happen on purpose, that at the end of it, you'd have your dead patsy. It was incompetence. They were understaffed. Horse crap. You don't understaff and have the best vantage point of the president, not only unmanned, but unsupervised. It was a let it happen on purpose. And at the end, some heads would roll. Oh, incompetence. You'll go, you whatever. Meanwhile, they would have gotten exactly what they wanted. It was a matter of days before the RNC. Trump hadn't been officially appointed yet. He hadn't nominated his VP yet. This was the time, and that kid, but for the grace of God.
Donald Trump was supposed to be in prison, but the Supreme Court sided with Donald Trump on presidential immunity. But the important factor, while most legal analysts expected that there would be some degree of immunity for Donald Trump, what I don't think anyone expected was that they would additionally add in their ruling that you could not use presidential actions, official acts as evidence of other wrongdoing.
Right.
Which, again, no one expected would undermine the New York hush money case and then delay the sentencing of Donald Trump. He would be in prison. He would not have been able to go to the convention. They would have held him back, and that failed. Now, that being said, I don't know what that means. And it certainly doesn't mean that all of these Secret Service agents are in on anything. It doesn't mean that the local law enforcement are in anything. It doesn't mean anything other than, like you said, let it happen on purpose. And all that it would require for that to be the case is a single logistics person intentionally saying, don't worry, guys, we've covered every vantage point location, and ignoring one. But again, I don't know. I
read a report that said that Secret Service policy is not to shoot until shots have been fired.
I've been told that's nonsense.
That seems totally insane.
Well, and also to your point, if he had to assemble his weapon on that roof, surely someone would have noticed this. Or did he have to get back down and get a weapon and then climb up again? Like, whatever happened here is actually concerning, because it seems like we know there was too much time, but also it doesn't seem like it was subtle, right? It's not like he was in all white and hiding on the roof for 3 days. I mean, it really seems like people watched this person climb up and down the roof.
And speaking of logistics, I also think it'll be interesting to get in, though apparently we can't get into his phone. You can only hack phones if you're,
No, they did. They did.
Okay.
It's been reported they got in, but they can't find anything. Like, there's nothing in it.
Right.
I think it's an interesting logistical oversight, though, on the shooter's part to even assume that a roof that's, less than 150 yards away from where President Trump was speaking, to assume that it would even be unsecured. That seems like just an oversight if you had really been planning this out. And frankly, I think there's a lot of similarities to just whether it's oddities. I think that's sort of the age-old question of the Biden regime, right? Is it intentional or is it a result of incompetence? But with the way Secret Service conducted themselves when it came to the January 6th pipe bomb incident, right? The footage that was released via Tom Massey showing them, despite some big pipe bomb being there, that Secret Service is just, sitting in the car. They're letting a gaggle of school children walk in front of it. The Capitol police officers taking a picture of it and then going back into the car. And I think it's just sort of a pattern of very interesting behavior that we should not be expecting from the Secret Service.
You made a really good point. This guy, how did he know that building would be available to him? There was a ladder seen in one photo. How? I mean, if he showed up to this rally and was walking around it acting suspicious, they reported him. Nobody took any action. In order for that security breach to have occurred, he was walking around with a weapon in a bag or on his person, and then got lucky and found this building. Where did the ladder come from? How was a building not secured with a direct line of sight?
Staging area for law enforcement.
Right.
So I think it's pretty obvious that I don't think you need to be a law enforcement professional to say that the law enforcement and Secret Service and security failed here on every level. I think it's a very scary thing of what it says that one determined person can do and be able to accomplish allegedly on their own to one of the most famous people on planet Earth, somebody who's supposed to have some of the best Secret Service protection on planet Earth. I don't know what that says for people who don't have Secret Service protection. I don't know what that says for you, other U.S. representatives, because, again, this was allegedly just one motivated person. And if this is what one motivated person could do, I don't know what that says for the security and state of our country with the current political climate. What you'll hear from the left is Trump is Hitler, and if you were able to kill baby Hitler.
Do you think there's a manifesto?
I cannot. There is no logical path to say a single person who was determined was able to scout out a location during Secret Service detail and was able to find a ladder to climb on top of a building, encountering 3 law enforcement officers who at no point called it in, and then 2 minutes from the crowd screaming he's on the roof and got a gun, not a single person got Trump off the stage. I cannot follow that logic.
There's so much law enforcement logic that can't be followed. Look what happened at Uvalde.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We see this all the time. Police officers go out there and then they completely fail.
That may be. Uvalde can be explained by cowardice.
Total
Parkland
cowardice.
can be explained by cowardice. This can't.
You don't think?
you can argue that
There was a
the
cop who
26 minutes.
retreated.
You can argue the 26 minutes beforehand when they saw this guy the first time, they just were confused and stupid, and it was stupidity. But I don't see how you argue that 2 minutes and 1 second before Trump was literally shot, there's video of people screaming, "He's got a gun! He's got a gun!" And not one law enforcement said, "Pull Trump, get him off the stage." We saw a man rush the stage. They just jump a barricade, and they grabbed Trump and pulled him off stage. This was a man, for 2 whole minutes, people were screaming, "He's got a gun," and nothing happened.
It is just, it's inconceivable to, channel the guy from Princess Bride. It's inconceivable. And also the fact that he got off so many shots. I mean, it's even if the issue was 20 seconds, they see this guy on the roof, and the guy, you see the sniper with his gun on him. It's inconceivable, all of it. This kid's just walking around with a gun and then says, "Oh, that roof is available. I'm going to take this opportunity."
Where'd
now
the ladder come from?
No, well, apparently the ladder might have been affixed to the building. I don't know. Maybe it was left over from the stage.
Perhaps.
I mean, it's a steel man net. Fine. The dude's on a building, on a roof, in a prone position. They know it for an extended period of time. He takes out a gun, gets several shots off before they finally take him out. It's inconceivable. It's called fractal wrongness. Nobody can be that wrong, and there can't be that many mistakes on accident in a sequence. It has to be.
I think the police and Secret Service can seriously be that incompetent. They didn't have a drone in the area. They had no aerial overview, and it's upsetting, and I think it's frightening. Again, what as of now we're told only one motivated person can do, the damage one motivated person can do to our political system, because we would be on the precipice of a civil war if Trump was a centimeter tilted otherwise.
Have you seen the reports that, and I can't confirm this, I don't know, but I just saw one report saying that Secret Service might have been divided between the Trump event and the Jill
Secret Service
Biden?
debunked that.
Okay, that's good. Because it is interesting to think that like they've been doing this for how long? I mean, they were originally founded to fight counterfeiting in the U.S., but then they've had this job forever, and they still don't seem to know we have to station everybody on rooftops. I mean, it is bizarre to me that there would be an open rooftop, that there wasn't,
130 yards away.
I don't understand.
This is for people with Secret Service. What does that say? Most politicians don't have secrets. I don't think any senators or maybe majority leaders, but like Secret Service is very rare. Former presidents, former first ladies, and current
candidates,
and like presumptive nominees.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. doesn't even have secret.
Well, did you see Trump?
He got it now.
Well, yeah, Trump today was like, "You really need to give RFK Jr. Secret Service."
He has it.
He got
Mayorkas came out and was like, "All right, we'll do it."
He was like, "Because Biden has asked me to, I will do it," which I find fascinating. Right?
Fine,
it has to be like
Biden is now taking orders from Trump.
No, it's to show unity. Now Biden's making concessions.
Right.
He's going to protect the people that he wants dead, and now's the time.
Let's show this photo real quick.
Unbelievable. Look at that.
That was
I know at this
amazing.
point many people have seen all of these photos.
I think this one's going to get a Pulitzer.
Let's we have this picture from Donald Trump, and you can see the bullet. That's the bullet that hit him. I would say with 90% certainty, because it's the first shot that rings out where Trump grabs the side of his head and then drops down. So this shot going out is before he even reached for his ear, which is likely the shot that pierced through his ear. So I just wanted to show that there's a lot of people on X, liberals and Democrats, trying to argue that Trump wasn't shot. He was hit by glass, a piece of glass. They claim the teleprompter was struck and the glass hit Trump.
Would that be any better?
The teleprompters were intact completely. There's numerous photos and video. The teleprompters are totally fine. They're lying to diminish this because they don't want Trump to appear strong. Even Cenk Uygur said Trump looked like a badass.
Mm-hmm. He did look like a bad.
But let's ask this question. We'll jump to this story. We have this from End Wokeness. Lester Holt says, "You called your opponent an existential threat and said to put Trump in a bullseye." Biden says, "I didn't say crosshairs." Before we play the clip, I'll show you this. Dan Goldman saying on MSNBC, Trump has to be eliminated. When he said this, we all collectively were like, stop. You can't say that. We were very critical of it. Then you have this, Steve Guest tweeting, Joe Biden on July 8th, 2024. He said, "I have one job, and that's to beat Donald Trump. I'm absolutely certain I'm the best person to be able to do that. So we're done talking about the debate. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye," Biden said.
He said
which
that to
resulted
donors.
in this.
You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that
I didn't say
words matter.
crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him.
It was a mistake, he says.
I swear he was about to say, I didn't write that post, because I don't actually think he manages his own social media.
So we've seen rhetoric from Democrats, and even right now, actually, I think I may have one of these tweets still. I don't
If I may just highlight, that is so patently absurd of an explanation. A bullseye is shooting something in the center of the target. And his explanation was that they weren't putting enough attention on the Trump campaign. They've been trying to put this guy in jail for 3 years now. The Agenda 2025 has been on the radar for the last 3. It's such a lie. But they use that rhetoric. Dan Goldman has blood on his hands for what he said earlier. I mean, we were all railing on him when he said that. They know damn well what they're doing. They are putting out the political permission slip, the dog whistle for their lunatic lefties to carry out the wishes of their masters. And one person did
They did it in 2020. They did it in 2016, or not 2016. But do you remember when Maxine Waters told people to go confront Trump officials and Trump admin people wherever they were and tell them they're not welcome? And then that happened. Sarah Huckabee Sanders got pushed out of a Waffle House.
I'm going to try to be a little bit principled here. I don't think that Dan Goldman has blood on his hands. I don't think this rhetoric is even that inflammatory. I mean, I think we hear much more inflammatory things pretty regularly, and I don't think this is what led that guy to do what he did. And if it were, I mean, I still think his actions speak for themselves, not rhetoric like this. Because if we held that standard across the board, I'm sure we could pretty quickly find stuff that, we could attach a lot of alleged killings to a lot of
completely disagree. This show particularly. Prime time, one of the top shows on YouTube in its slot, and we say all the time not to broach that. I have complained about people who come on the show and make allusions to violence. I say, do not do it.
You cut them off.
I mean,
pull the string.
I admire you going above and beyond.
Look, that one's obvious, okay? We don't want to get banned. But I also do get very upset when people think it's okay and to make direct allusions to violence. Now, I get it. If you say fight, 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 oh, come on. We know what that means. If AOC says we're going to get out there and fight, we know what it means. And I'm not even that concerned necessarily about Maxine Waters saying get out there and confront people. It's like you're getting a little close on the line. Joe Biden saying put him in a bullseye, okay, is the line. Okay, I can understand where it's like there may be some rhetoric there, turn of phrase, but you cannot have Joe Biden, you cannot have George Takei, who just came out, and all these Democrats saying things like he needs to be eliminated, he's an existential threat, he's a threat to democracy, he's Hitler, etc., and not expect people who engaged in the worst riots in 50 years to do something like this. Now, this man who took the shot at Donald Trump is 20 years old. Since he was 12, he has been inundated with a constant barrage of these media personalities and Democrats saying Donald Trump is Hitler. What is a young person developing in their mind? What are they going to see? The rhetoric is clear. The creation in this person's mind is clear. What happens? This is why we can't have that kind of language.
I think it's a dangerous First, I wanted to come out and say I admire and commend you for trying to help tone down the rhetoric with many of your guests that come on and have a line in the sand. I do think some of Joe Biden's and some of the Democrats, and I'm sure it's not limited to them, I'm sure there's many Republicans who use aggressive rhetoric, definitely contribute to a political climate that is hotter and more likely to have something boil over. But I think it strips the person of his agency if we're just saying, this is what caused him to do it. I don't think this is a direct call for violence. Brings up the temperature, but I think it's a dangerous standard to hold them to.
I think at this point we should reference J.D. Vance, right? He was the one who said afterwards, this wasn't an isolated incident. The Biden-Harris campaign has been pushing this idea that there will be political violence for a long time. I don't know that there's one tweet that sent someone off, again, unless we get some sort of manifesto or diary entry that says this is exactly it with a citation. But it is a culture that has definitely been pushed, that there is tension coming and everyone needs to be prepared.
And I would respectfully push back too, because I think when you hear those heated clips coming from right-wing media, I'm sure Steve Bannon probably has a lot of those moments that they are always taking out of context. We are always very precise and particular with how you channel that energy. And you always hear right-wing commentators telling people to get involved on the grassroots level and to make that change happen within the political system. In contrast, when you have people like this go on there and say things like, put him in a bullseye, put him in the crosshairs, not even sure that that's that much better, or just year after year, media cycle after media cycle, just getting this pent-up anger, making people angry. There's no outlet for it other than political violence.
On May 29th, 2020, thousands of far-left extremists firebombed the White House grounds. They set fire to St. John's Church. Donald Trump was forced into a bunker, an emergency bunker, and the collective media and Democratic apparatus insulted him over it. They mocked him. They called him bunker boy and bunker baby. 100+ law enforcement officers were injured in those riots. Photos coming out from D.C., an aerial view of smoke rising around the Capitol, like the White House and the Capitol, are shocking. This was 4 years ago. And now here we are with the rhetoric has not stopped. And even after this, George Takei tweeted, Donald Trump is an existential threat, but we'll defeat him with ballots, not bullets. I'm sorry, but that rhetoric does not make sense. There's two messages there. An existential threat means we will cease to exist if he succeeds. And what that message sends, whether it's intentional or not, and I don't care what his intention is, what I'm concerned about is someone just tried and nearly killed Donald Trump, which would rip this country asunder. And now this man is saying, if we don't win, we won't exist anymore. What is the response to that statement?
Well, George Takei should be deplatformed, not for I'm not an anti-free speech person whatsoever. He knows damn well what he's doing. I would just want to say also, Tim, it wouldn't have just plunged America into turmoil had that bullet been 1 millimeter. World War I started with a random Franz Ferdinand being assassinated. This would have driven the world into World War III. China would have said, well, the U.S. is in turmoil now.
They think
Let's
we're in
take
turmoil
Taiwan.
anyway.
No, but yeah, but
not
right,
that, not as bad as that.
This
but I'm
bullet
saying
would have been.
We're already edging.
No, for sure. But this bullet would have been the modern day Franz Ferdinand bullet. I don't want to pick on you any more than everyone else has, but I'll say another one thing.
What?
It's when Trump said bloodbath, referring to an economic situation, the media went ape poop on him.
They still are.
No,
Biden talked about it in this Lester Holt interview.
It's not that I don't.
You
agree
don't think Trump said anything crazier than we'll put him in the crosshairs? Or we'll put him in the bullseye?
I'll tell you what,
I'm sure he said something that
I can tell
is
you
a better allusion towards violence than this.
I'll guarantee you he didn't, because if they did, they would have used it against his impeachment. Stand back, stand by, fight like hell. I mean, those are the things that they tried to impeach him for saying, for having said, because that incited violence. So it's not only that the right doesn't do it. When the right even comes close and skirts the line, they get raked over the coals by the media. These people, they know exactly what they're doing. Goldman knows exactly what he's doing, and they do have blood on their hands.
Well, and I think to give sympathy to Elad's argument here, I just don't think Joe
That's
Biden
a loose
wrote
standard
this, right?
for blood on his hands. I feel like, respectfully.
No, I know, but I happen to believe these are dog whistles. They know damn well what they're doing, and when we say we got to beat them at the ballot box, not with bullets. They know exactly what they're saying, and they're giving a political permission slip for any lunatic who goes.
Is that to say you think this rhetoric should be illegal?
No, it shouldn't be illegal, but it should certainly be. No, because these are not true threats, and I don't think it should be illegal. There should be political sanctions. I think some of these things could be impeachable. At the very least, there should be a uniform standard. Fight like hell, gets impeached, horse crap.
Or I think just call their bluffs that we don't want unity with you, because I guarantee you, if in that same interview you were to ask Dan Goldman, oh, so you want unity with Trump, you're good with unity, they would say, hell no, we don't want unity. This guy's an existential
We want you
threat.
dead, but we just can't say it.
But they just can't say it. And that's why I think we need to forcibly reject this whole unity narrative. Not that I'm not calling for violence or anything like that, but it's a scam. It's a lie. Unity has always been a euphemism for, frankly, I think,
submission.
Crawling back the victories that grassroots MAGA have made.
But whatever this is, whatever you think it is, or however it went down, this man failed. Unfortunately, he took the life of Corey Comparator and severely injured several others who people are chatting about. So he did still cause harm, and a lot of people say he missed, and they're mocking the idea. And I just want to stress this: they're not just talking about Trump. Even Trump said they're not after me; they're after you. I'm just in the way. In this instance, when the bullet did miss Trump, it still hit several good people who were just at an event to hear what he had to say. And so in the broader sense, the man didn't miss. He hit several people who he hated. Now, that being said, the failure to stop Donald Trump. Frank Luntz he's a famous pollster, said he was asked by numerous media outlets what this means, and he said, every Trump supporter is now a Trump voter. Done. Mm-hmm. And that's the equivalent of a 1 to 2 point poll swing instantly. Likely, these swing states are now going to go for Donald Trump, no question. And Trump is likely to win. We will see. And what that means is we have to have equality under the law. We have to have Donald Trump prove to the American people there is a law that exists and you must adhere to it, because what makes me angry, what drives me and makes me want Trump to win is the abuse of the system by Democrats, with the most egregious so far being that Steve Bannon has gone to prison and Merrick Garland has skirted the law, and the Democrats are laughing about it. They called Anna Paulina stupid for trying to uphold the law because Merrick Garland broke the law. And I am furious that we cannot get that justice. And I hope that what we see with Donald Trump, and I'm not even convinced we'll get it, is that he simply appoints a good DOJ and they say, we are going to reaffirm our commitment to justice, to the legal process and the law, and hold those accountable who have skirted the law and broken the rules.
Just to say something on the unity. Yeah, the idea, you literally just tried to kill me. Unify. Go straight. I won't swear on the show. Go bless yourself.
Well,
but the issue is I think there will be a lasting unity out of this in what we're seeing with RFK Jr. and Trump. And kindred spirits now that they're connected by the most heinous acts ever, but a unity among rational, reasonable Americans that are going to be the ones who are going to make the difference. You don't unify with the devil. You don't unify with your enemy. Biden and his ilk are the enemy in a political sense, but there will be unity among the people that is going to have the impact of defeating those people.
I think what we're seeing already, the gas has been removed from the uniparty machine because regular people are scared of violence. They do not want this, and they are correct in not wanting this. The far left and many of the more, wacky Democrats who have been advocating for violence or saying things like they're sad that the guy missed. Kyle Gass of Tenacious D on stage saying he wished the guy wouldn't miss or something to that effect. Regular people don't like this, and they're scared.
But the mainstream media knows it, and that's why they pulled Morning Joe, right? CNN was breaking that they, for at least for the next week, that Morning Joe, we call it Morning Mika on the War Room, is off air. And it really is funny. I watched some of MSNBC's coverage this morning. The title of it is like the most drab thing you could get. It's like emergency coverage of assassination attempt. And they have two of the most like low energy looking journalists that I've ever seen hosting the show. And they keep bringing on historians as guests. So they're like obviously not trying to touch it with a 10-foot pole, right? They're trying to keep it very apolitical in their coverage because they know they even know that they can't put any of their guests on without creating some viral, soundbite or clip of them probably calling for similar acts like this.
I want to jump to the story from the Daily Mail. Under fire, ABC News host George Stephanopoulos suggests Trump is to blame for violent rhetoric after assassination attempt. During Sunday's episode of ABC's This Week, Stephanopoulos and Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz discussed the current political environment. Raddatz discussed conspiracy theories that President Biden caused the horrific attack and noted a tweet from J.D. Vance that Biden's rhetoric led to the attack. Quote, of course, President Trump and his supporters have contributed to this violent rhetoric as well, Stephanopoulos said, blaming Donald Trump. I reject this and I don't accept it. Republicans, many on the right, they don't protest. It is rare to see Republicans get out and do anything. Now, of course, there certainly is some rhetoric, but as I always explain to people, it's an inversion. You have prominent Democrat and liberal personalities openly calling for violence. Let's go back in time. Punch a Nazi. Everyone remembers that. How about the Covington kids? That one guy, I can't remember which, I think it was a Disney employee, I'm not sure, I could be wrong, posted a picture of a wood chipper. Reza Aslan said that he insinuated he wanted to punch the kid punch that kid in the face. The kid had a punchable face. And then some people on the right, sometimes say negative things, but it's an inversion. Most prominent right personalities say, no violence, stop, we don't want this, we can't have this.
I think it's even beyond talking about it online. I mean, who attacked the congressional baseball game, right? Like, didn't Ron Paul get attacked by a Democrat? Right? So, like, this is something that we haven't it hasn't happened in a vacuum. It's not like this is the only time that the scales have tipped. I mean, we always reference the summer of 2020, but really this boiling energy that's been there has actually spilled over the pot a couple times, and it's not typically the narrative that the media wants to talk about. I think that we take for granted that America is a safe country, and things like this happen other places. Like when you saw Mexico's election, there were all these reports of assassinations, and it was like, oh, that's a crazy place. But what we have is fragile, and we have to protect it. And I just don't think that's the messaging we've gotten from the Biden campaign, right? They've talked about political violence. They keep showing clips of things they think went wrong in the past. They use fear to try and inspire their voters. It's not a peaceful party. And I think you see that demonstrated more than we really acknowledge because, again, we sort of are numb to it.
I think it's important to see, while some Democrats are trying to moderate some of their language, I think it's important to remember that I actually do believe that not I don't know if it's just Democrats, but many in the far left, many at the base of the party actually do hate Donald Trump to like the core of his soul and do believe that he is a genocidal fascist, Hitler-esque figure that does need to be taken out. And unfortunately, it's not an uncommon thought to think like that these people are unhappy that the shots missed Donald Trump. I was actually interviewing some people today on the march on the RNC who specifically said it's a shame that the person missed. I don't think that's uncommon, and it's important to recognize the vitriol and deep-seated hate these people have for many on the right.
What is everybody on the right said about Joe Biden? He should retire.
Yeah.
He should go be with his family. I've seen it from all of these prominent personalities. Dan Bongino. Joe Biden should be sitting at home and with his family having oatmeal.
Surrounded by his grandkids.
Yep.
That seems great.
What an amazing.
But also, aren't the ones on the left? Aren't the ones the leftists are always the ones saying that the right is engaging in stochastic terror? Right?
Stochastic terrorism.
Isn't that basically what they're doing?
Yes.
It's the iron law of woke projection.
Right.
It's James Lindsay's
That's
term.
the one.
And I grew up.
They just keep doing the same thing that they accuse everyone on the right of doing.
I reject the concept of stochastic terrorism.
for
I think it's a
sure.
different
I
thing than
agree
direct
with you.
threat. But I mean, we were kind of
But
talking
here
about.
they are doing the exact same thing, as they're accusing people on the right of always doing, and they're doing this, and they're saying, but we should get a pass because it's just political language, and the White House even said that they weren't going to stop.
Stochastic terrorism is a real thing. It's just, to what degree is it ubiquitous? The left says it's everywhere all the time, nonstop. But the general concept of what it really means is, oh, won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest?
Yes. I also...
No, that's it.
I think that's sort of an interesting thread to pull if you look at how for the last, since 2016, like almost 10 years, they really have gone to lengths to define domestic extremism as basically MAGA supporters and January 6th type rioters. And again, who knows, incompetence, intentional, something funky happened at that rally. But when you look at billions, probably when you add it up, it's probably like trillions of dollars that have been poured into these, anti-domestic extremism efforts, and the way that word has been reformulated to really just be synonymous and analogous with Trump supporters. No wonder why this guy would slip through the cracks, right? Because he doesn't really fit their definition of what it means to be a domestic extremist, in the sense that he wasn't someone who was, walking around a Joe Biden rally holding up Trump signs. And I'm not saying that they missed him, but I think that's if you look at a cultural systemic shift that has been happening inside these, Secret Service operates under the auspices of DHS, the very same DHS that behind closed doors is weaponizing against MAGA, is holding secret meetings with, social media companies to censor us. They don't think people who are shooting at Trump that doesn't really fit their domestic terrorism narrative, right?
They're not shit posting on Twitter. This guy wasn't. So I guess he wasn't on the list.
Domestic terrorists can't donate to Act Blue. He
wouldn't set off any of their radars because they have made domestic terrorism, domestic extremism, something that is wholly different from what it should be.
I've had this, it's a recent theory that I have, is that, we grew up with the term liberalism is a mental disorder. I've always heard it as a kid, never fully understood it until now. But I look at the Democrat Party, and they have no qualms and a total propensity to exploiting the mentally vulnerable, the mentally ill, for political profit, like they did with Greta Thunberg, like they did with Fetterman, just anybody. It doesn't even matter if he's mentally unwell. Just get him in there.
You left Joe Biden off the list.
Well, and Joe Biden now. Just prop up a weekend at Bernie's. They will exploit the fragile, the infirmed for political profit. And they use the mentally ill and the mentally unwell as their strong arm, as their thugs on the street to promote and push and instill terror for those who don't follow their politics. And so the left's propensity, and the Democrats with the capital D, to use people who are clearly mentally unwell. I saw the counter protest. Anybody saying I wished he wasn't off target has a mental problem, and I mean probably a diagnosable one. And they use them as tools for political profit, and we're seeing it now. But they accuse others of what they are doing themselves. It's Nazi propaganda going back to Goebbels.
You made a point a while ago, Viva, that if Donald Trump were to have been hit, it's world war. It's
they don't know the hell they are ushering in, because it would be the most not demoralizing. The JFK assassination was graphic, and this was broad daylight, live streamed, real time HD. There would have been. I won't use the word. It would have been a not America the day after. But for the grace of God, it looks like people are going to actually be unified as opposed to all hell breaking loose.
The political instability likely would have resulted in
1,000%.
Like the moves we'd end up seeing from Russia, from China, would be drastic, and it would lead to a chain of events that I think would create massive international instability. And I highlight this point you made because these people who are online, they're young people. One video is a guy screaming at the top of his lungs saying, "How could you miss?
Yep.
How could you miss?" They don't know or care. Now, we can say that's a mental disorder, but I also think the problem is it is a failed generation. It is not that these people's brains are not functioning, like, 1 + 2 = 3. It exists in there. It's that the neural pathways were not constructed in their brains so they can understand the structure of the planet and what happens to them after the fact. They don't know or care. They are detached. This is behavioral sync to an extreme degree. If those of you are familiar with the rat utopia experiment, they want for things that result in their own death, which leads to the destruction of a species.
Because I still buy the current story out that it was just the lone wolf shooter. It is really unsettling in how much more political violence I unfortunately foresee this leading to. Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan, was assassinated not too long ago. And again, there's a short list of people on the Secret Service. Most reps and senators and governors are accessible compared to the way Trump was. So one motivated person could do so much damage to our fragile democracy. I sound like a Democrat saying that.
That's true. And as an aside, just if you want to talk later, I can get you a real good price on the Brooklyn Bridge.
No, it's one dedicated person would spend weeks scoping it out, finding the weakness. What did he do? Show up and say, "Hey, that roof is unattended. I'm going to go back to my car and get my gun." I mean, it's that kid wasn't dedicated. That was lazy.
And what if the roof wasn't available? Was he just going to take his best shot? Was he going to just chill with his rifle? It is I don't know.
Look, man,
I don't know.
Look,
and by the way,
if we start from a dedicated crazy person found a way, I'd be with you. But if we start from 26 minutes before he was reported to the police, took a picture of him. A second officer saw him, took a picture of him on the roof. Another officer encountered him on the roof, and then the man pointed a gun at him, so he backed away. 2 minutes before the shooting, Trump supporters are screaming in the audience, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun." And not one law enforcement called it in or did anything. Bro.
If you told me Trump needed to just turn his head a little bit and his life would have been saved, I wouldn't believe you either. So if I'm buying that, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I think
There
that's
are a
how
lot of things that are very crazy.
that's how a lot of people
fair
feel.
point. I accept that.
Trump,
fair point.
he was shot through the ear, and he has a wound through his ear. You can't shoot like that if you try to.
That's where the divine intervention in this comes in. And I'm not a religious person, but I had just watched Pulp Fiction, and I'm like, if that's not an act of God, I don't know what is.
I saw your post about Pulp Fiction.
It was great. I was watching it last week, and and then it happens. Oh yeah, no, what we witnessed today was an absolute miracle that prevented the world from descending into World War III.
Did you guys see this new thing? So Elon Musk is promised to donate $45 million per month to like a Trump backing super PAC.
Because he endorsed
$45 million.
Is he
a
tweeting
month.
this now or what?
Yeah, it's
No,
just
it's
breaking.
just in the Wall Street Journal right now.
I sent you a link, Tim.
Had they not pissed off Elon Musk, he might not have gotten so involved in this.
He endorsed Trump, within 20 minutes of everything happening? I mean, as the world was freaking out, he was like, I'm with Trump. And that's an incredibly powerful statement from this guy who had sort of tried to stay a little bit neutral.
Let's pull
but then
this
he
up.
realized
Let's
it
pull
was
it.
existential.
Yeah.
We got this story from the Wall Street Journal breaking. Elon Musk has said he is committing around $40 $45 million a month to a new pro-Trump super PAC. Other backers of America PAC include Palantir Technologies co-founder Joe Lonsdale and the Winklevoss twins.
Wild.
Wow.
But they had supported. I mean, they came out a couple weeks ago on Trump's side. I mean, it is fascinating to see that this is becoming an issue that's bigger than just, elites in the cities vote this way and rural people vote this way.
Well, it's interesting. Elon Musk's evolution on this has been organic, and you could see the trajectory. In the early stages when he bought Twitter, everyone's like, cynical. Is he going to be free speech or not? And whether or not he's second best to Rumble, as far as I'm concerned, that's a close second best, and it's a good place to be. But they went after Elon Musk, and he saw what they did to him in Delaware. He saw what the governments were trying to do to him in Brazil. And now he says, F it. This is not just a war against Trump. This is not just a war against me. This is a war against the Western values as we know them. And holy, $45 million a month, that'll buy you a lot of ad space, a lot of grassroots ground support.
I mean, I can't do the math fast enough, but we've got 4 months to go. I mean, it's an insane amount of money.
225 million.
So he's going to donate $250 million in support of Trump. Like, that's an insane number. I can't even believe we've reached that level. But I do think you're right. I think with Elon Musk, what I find so interesting is that he is an inspirational character to so many. I mean, he's really, done a lot with his life. But also he's sort of a mystery. People don't always know where his loyalties are. People don't always know exactly what his values are. Has a ton of children. Seems to have them with lots of people. Like, there's stuff that it isn't orthodox conservatism, so to speak. And it does seem like it is his values and worldview starting to align with the things that people are saying. If we can only take a certain things forward into the future with us, these are what they want them to be. We want them to be free speech. We want them to be securities, and we want them to be a certain level of honesty from all of these pillars of society.
Well, 9 kids with multiple women. It might not be conservative values, but gosh
12.
darn it, that's freedom. Okay,
12.
The freedom to go around and spread your seed.
Yeah.
But, no, it's
Isn't
amazing.
that like a big part of his point? Isn't
He was like,
I don't know. I was just making a joke.
He was early days like the birth rate is collapsing, and we need to do something. Stop talking about overpopulation.
Putting himself where his mouth is.
He's putting his seed where his mouth is, which is
I don't want to keep going with that one.
He is personally going to turn around our birth rate, but the reality is that was a conversation people weren't open to having. Not even because they were against it, because they were like, "That's so weird and abstract." Like, when Elon Musk gets behind something, it's actually leading you in an interesting and probably important direction. He doesn't talk about things just because he's feeling like it. He talks about them because he feels as though they are going to have a major impact. Then he goes and does the thing. That's true. Yeah. Then he has 12 children. What are the rest of you doing?
12 children, rocket ships, cyber trucks.
I think Wednesday we're going to get the updated polls, and it's going to be tremendous for Trump. I think in aggregate we might see him up 4 or 5 points, and that's me being conservative. But I got to be honest, if we saw an aggregate polling showing Trump at +9, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising.
The down ballot consequences are what's going to be very significant here. So big pickups in the Senate and on House is what's going to be huge.
Well, and also they basically halted the movement to replace Biden. Like, okay, that's it. I don't know why they would do that. Actually, to me right now, it'd be like, okay, well, now we've got nothing to lose, so get him out. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm still betting that it won't be Biden on the ticket, but
why? Why do you think it won't be?
Because
he's just going to fail that much that
I think there might be a coup.
Him?
Well, okay, if I go
They've been working on the coup. That's why he said that bullseye thing to a bunch of donors a week before the assassination attempt.
Well, maybe they can impeach him now and remove him and then replace him with somebody else. I mean,
it would have to be Congress to impeach him, and Republicans wouldn't vote for that.
Well, okay, there's
Not now,
I haven't
anyway.
thought that through yet, but no, if we want to go like real tinfoil hat conspiracy theory,
let's go for it.
And I don't like putting this juju out in the universe, but a retaliatory attack on Kamala and Biden from a far-right extremist.
This is a terrible plan.
No, not terrible. And it's a terrible plan. But they are evil, and if they've got nothing left to lose, false flags galore.
See, I think the desperation from the DNC to sort of get away from this replace Biden narrative is interesting to factor in. I mean, nothing was changing the story. We were talking about Biden's gaffe. We were going back through old footage. He was making, Vice President Trump and President Putin comments. Like, he couldn't stop it. Like, this is really the only thing that has somewhat changed the media's attention. And so I think you're right. There, you could take this into a very, very dark place, and it's just not for me to speculate about who and why and where. But I think in the Biden campaign needed the narrative to change really badly. And this is one of the issues they now have with messaging, right? Because they have been so divisive. They can't now come back and say, like, just kidding, we think Trump's an okay guy. Like, you saw this thing when he announced, when they announced that J.D. Vance was vice president. I'm sure we'll talk about this more later, but Biden had a statement pretty readily available. It was there. I mean, how long did it take him to respond to the attack in Pennsylvania? A lot longer. It's obvious to me that all of this is something that the Biden campaign was both not prepared for and also are completely out of control. What I wonder what will happen when the polls come out is how far down he will fall. It's not that Trump will surge. It's that Biden will become more unpopular because they cannot figure out how to get their narrative back on track.
I just want to say one thing, because I know Tim's sensitive to it, and as am I. Anybody calling for retaliatory whatever is Fed or Fed adjacent. Disown them, disavow them, and get the hell away from them, because there's no need for it, and it would never be the right thing in the first place, because you do not defeat the monster by becoming the monster. You've just replaced the monster.
That's right. And predicted right now, Donald Trump, 68 cents to win. That's about 68% to win. Joe Biden at 26 cents, Kamala at 12. But Trump is 2-1 the favorite right now in the predicted betting market.
Speaking of Fed, something I thought was interesting, I watched Joe Biden's address yesterday, and when he was like rattling off the various other acts of political violence, of course not missing the opportunity to condemn the spread of misinformation and insist that foreign actors were trying to meddle in our democracy. I don't know about you, but I noticed he didn't bring up the Michigan kidnapping hoax.
No, he brought it up.
Oh, he did?
He brought up
but he
Whitmer.
didn't bring up January 6th. There were a lot of events that I would have thought that he would have brought up, but they sort of hammered in on, no pun intended, on certain events that he purposely didn't mention. And are you sure he mentioned? Maybe he did. I think he mentioned.
I think he mentioned both.
Maybe. I was listening to it and I was looking for it and he didn't. Anyways,
okay.
we can look after. But anyways, I thought that speech was just it was an interesting vibe for him to strike if he even knew what he was saying.
Yeah, that's the other thing with everything. Yeah. Like we go comb through Biden's social media history. I stand by. He cannot operate Twitter. He can barely operate the stairs, like he is not actually writing any of these posts. He's not like Trump, who is like, oh, I can't be on Twitter anymore. I will start my own media company. Like, it's very different. And so you were mentioning earlier, like the concept of or the potential for it to be dog whistles. I mean, that would be an internal staffing issue, right? That would mean whoever's in charge of putting these tweets out is saying like, I'm going to give some spicy language. It would further indicate that Biden is not in control of the ship he's theoretically captaining, and it's to the detriment of the country.
I also think that's sometimes why he comes off so discombobulated. Obviously, part of it is the cognitive decline. But, Trump speaks for himself, right? Trump is best when he is unfettered, pure, raw Trump. And Biden is, I feel like, this weird collection of just a bunch of different advisors and like weird staffers who probably deep down all have very different political leanings, right? And it comes out in this weird amalgamation that is like a Joe Biden speech. So he has probably all these voices, right, in his head of different people advising him. And that's why he's like, well, I didn't mean bullseye, I meant crosshair. It's like it's competing voices telling him what to say, whereas Trump can be so on message and so direct because he thinks for himself, right? He can make his own picks. With Joe Biden, it's like a little bit of this wing of the Democratic Party, a little bit of this. Oh, I was just on the phone 5 minutes with this guy before I spoke. So you get this weird mixture of gobbledygook, as Steve would say.
Trump was at the rally before he got shot. He was saying, I'm going to go off prompter. Do you mind? Something like that. Do you mind? Yeah. Like, they hate it when I do it, but these prompters are so boring. And he just talks to the crowd and he's funny.
Yeah. I mean, that's his biggest asset of all. I mean, even the fact that there was a prop on stage and he's gesticulating. I mean, we can never say, but some of these things seem to have played into what saved his life. And I think that there was always sort of a very clear contrast between Trump and Biden. No one was mistaking them for each other. They aren't two politicians who are polished and poised in the same way. It really feels like now it's even more pronounced, in part because Trump is rallying the country forward and Biden is slowly disintegrating in front of us.
Yeah, and one of the crazy things, and again about this, obviously every part of this is really crazy, but before the shooting, before the attempted assassination, it was just a regular Trump rally. Everything was going well.
Well, you were there.
I wanted to tell you guys a funny little story where I feel so ambivalent about. I was actually covering the Trump rally for Timcast News. I was there a couple of
Timcast
hours
News on Twitter
before the shooting, and then I remember getting a notification saying the Trump rally was in Butler, Pennsylvania, but then I got a notification saying, oh, Jill Biden's having a campaign event for Joe Biden just an hour away. And I thought, I've covered dozens of Trump rallies. They're actually kind of boring after you hear the same spiel, talk to all the Trump supporters and whatnot. So I head out to go to this Jill Biden campaign rally. I ended up speaking to some supporters. I thought I got some great coverage there. I leave there. I see on Twitter as I'm driving out towards Milwaukee of the horrible news about Trump. A couple of hours out. Obviously, the story's not about me. It was a crazy series of events. And
I mean, it was definitely interesting being on staff because our executive editor, Chris Card, reached out to me being like, can you jump on your laptop? Like, we got to get some stuff out. And I knew you had been there. And there was a moment where I was like, do I need to text Elad right now? Like, is he okay? And then I happened to open my phone, and the last tweet you had put over, what was coming in my feed was like something from Joe Biden.
Did you see that Aaron Rupar, right, who obviously covers like every Trump rally ever? This was the only rally that he decided to take off so he could go to a concert with his mom.
Can I think I just put something together. The Jill and Kamala thing was the same day and the same time as Trump.
That's
simultaneously.
And that would be the explanation for why Secret Service
was divided.
Was divided.
Which they say no.
They say
I don't believe it's true.
Well, just add that. Appreciate that Biden's live speech last night, and I'll put it in quotes because I don't know what evidence we have that it was live.
I agree with you.
I think it was pre-recorded because he has to take a number of takes to get that thing done, but stick a little red live and then people will believe it. It was supposed to be a eulogy. And it was supposed to be Biden saying, this is a terrible tragedy. This is the result of Trump's terrible words. And we must unify as a nation right now. And then they would have chalked it up to the fact that, the Secret Service and FBI was all split because we happened to have planned an event in the same state, a corrupt state, the same day that Trump is there. You've just confirmed it in my mind. This is definitely a Lee Hop, and that was their alibi.
I would say that what I saw from Biden without jumping to the tin hat thing, what I saw from Biden was an attempt to take the reins of leadership, which clearly had been ceded on Saturday afternoon to Donald Trump. Donald Trump looked like a leader. Biden did not. And so he spent that, even through tonight's Lester Holt interview, right? He has spent this whole time trying to get the spotlight back on himself, or his team has been trying to do that. I don't know if Biden is aware of what's going on necessarily, but he's been trying to paint himself as the leader of this nation, when what we saw on Saturday afternoon is that he is not the leader of the United States.
I like all the various ways the White House has tried to depict Biden as like leading what is ever happening at the White House. Like, remember, it was probably a year ago, Politico had put out that big story where they were saying Joe Biden is yelling at everyone in the West Wing. He's going on tirades, screaming at people, putting them in their place. It was so obvious.
I think there was a report like that this weekend before everything happened in Pennsylvania.
And it's so interesting, like the information warfare side of things, how they try to go about depicting him as this, for lack of a better word, like alpha male who's, running around the White House, running the show. And we know nothing could be further from the case.
Before I jump to this next story, I just got to say, props to Libby for that excellent slide ribbing at Viva. That was very.
Libby, you remind me. I gotta give credit to Robert Barnes for a lot of the theorizing that I've absorbed through osmosis. And last night we're doing our show, and Barnes is talking like they picked Pennsylvania, like the most corrupt state in which for this to happen. And now the FBI is going to go investigate themselves. What other state? Do it in Texas and see what happens in that investigation.
I love how Texas sued Pennsylvania in 2020 for violating their own election laws, and the Supreme Court was like, nah, we're okay.
Did you see Rhode Island? Oh, no. Like Rhode Island put out that bizarre statement. They're like, we've looked into this and we have nothing to do with this.
Wow. About the
Thanks,
Butler
Rhode
incident?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rhode Island police.
Let's jump to the story, ladies and gentlemen, from the Washington Post. Trump's classified documents case dismissed by Judge Eileen Cannon. Special counsel Jack Smith says he will appeal the judge's ruling that he was improperly appointed. Trump won.
The rich get richer. There's so many things lining up. Obviously, the assassination not lining up, but politically, the past month or so has been unbelievable for Donald Trump.
I'm getting tired of winning.
Really wild, yeah.
Between the debate performance, obviously the surviving the assassination attempt defiantly, in the fashion that he did.
With resolve and hope and optimism
and his
for the American
shoes.
people.
I feel like we didn't linger and talk enough about how you couldn't have written it better when he like came back up, was willing to yell fight, not scared, pumping his fist.
If Hollywood was honest, there'd be a film in the making already.
And now that they came for the king with so many different shots and none have hit, and metaphorically,
Teflon Don.
You know what's fascinating is you guys watch The Boys?
I have been watching that show.
So
I am enjoying it. I watch it with my
Is that the
kids.
sequel to Girls? Because if
No, it's a superhero show, but
It's fascinating.
it's like supposed to be a parody of superheroes, so they're just making fun of superheroes. Homelander is supposed to be Superman, and initially he wasn't Trump, but now after into season 3, they decided to make it Trump versus Hillary or something. And so they're all just allusions to modern American politics. Like they outright say things like QAnon and make references to it. And they have rallies, but Homelander is supposed to be Trump. And the way they depict him in this show is this evil, narcissistic guy with mommy issues.
crashing
They
plans
would
full of
have
people.
Yeah, right. And then lying about it and saying, but evil, running a corporation. And they would have loved if when Donald Trump got shot, he panicked, crawled on the ground, stumbled down the stairs, and ran shaking in a random direction. Instead, as the Secret Service is trying to pull him away, he resists, raises his fist, and yells, "Fight, fight, fight."
Oh, it was great.
Has anyone seen the movie Dead Zone with Christopher Walken? Dead Zone.
How old is that movie?
Oh, it's old as Methuselah. But that's how they got
1,000
rid
years
of Charlie Sheen's. Is it Charlie Sheen's dad? What's his name?
Martin
Martin Sheen. And I don't want to ruin the movie for everybody.
You mean President Bartlett?
That's true. So true.
Well, in that movie, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's a great movie, but it's a plotted assassination against a politician. The guy takes out a gun, and the politician picks up a baby and uses it as a shield. And then he didn't even
literal baby,
and he didn't even have to get killed. It was the point. His career was done after that, and the guy who could see the future, Christopher Walken, dies knowing that he foiled World War III. Trump's response, it makes me want to cry. It's absolute. It's art, but it's real life. This is a man. He just took a bullet, and he gets up and says, "Forget the shoes. The shoes. I was actually worried he might have hit his head, and he's a little discombobulated. When people get hit in the head, they get a little." Defensive.
I think he wanted to walk off that stage like a man.
Yeah.
But
wearing his
he
shoes.
says, wait, and puts up his fist with blood dripping from his.
For the crowd. That was for us. That was for the Americans.
And I don't want to say imagine if it was another politician, but you can imagine someone saying, "Get me out of here and cover me, you a-holes."
Well, to resist your own Secret Service who are like, "We are leaving the stage," and he's like, "No," and they can't make him, right? Like, he is doing something, he's in the middle of something. And that's the thing about Donald Trump. He has such a strong will. There's a reason that we say that there was a different response to him on the geopolitical stage.
But it was the selflessness of the act that he might, in theory, still have been at risk. And he's like, screw this, I'm fighting for the country. And I'll tell you this, if anybody didn't like Donald Trump before that and still doesn't like him now, you're an idiot.
This is when I saw it, this is what I thought. If Donald Trump can take a bullet for you, you can take the time to go and vote for him. I hope people do. I hope that. As Franklin said, the Trump supporter has now become the Trump voter, guaranteed. I hope so.
I think that's true. I also think that this is a wake-up call for independence, right? I mean, this is not a thing that you can just be on the fence about anymore. And I think as the days play out, as you see the contrasting administration and the responses, it is something that you can't really say, this didn't have an effect on me. I didn't feel anything. I didn't look at Donald Trump with blood on his face, standing up and as this crowd chants USA, USA, and think, I'm just not going to go to the polls. Like, everyone had a reaction to this.
I know we've been ragging on the Secret Service a lot, and a lot of people have been saying like, "Oh, DEI," and they've been infiltrated by this ideology. But we need to be thankful that there are actually women's Secret Service allowing for that photo to look so iconic, with him not being covered by these 6'6" men. He was like, he was overshadowing this small female officer, like barely coming up to his waist, like holding on to him. So
he
we
dragged
have
her
to
off
thank,
the stage.
We have to thank the Secret Service, the DEI.
But just to go back to the topic at hand,
Female
Donald
cops.
Trump's victory in the classified documents case. Now, there is a suggestion that they could bring the charges back, but the lawfare that they are waging against Trump, when the view the Washington Post has of this, okay, that Trump's argument succeeded, that Jack Smith was improperly appointed, an argument that many people made a while ago. Mm-hmm. They're framing it as though it shouldn't have happened. It's an odd thing. The judge shouldn't have done this. When we look at what they did to Trump in New York, they created a new law that would allow someone to sue Donald Trump for sexual impropriety. That's how he got there. They accused him of civil fraud, even though his lender said he didn't defraud us. He gave us the warnings outright, and we like doing business with him. They go after him. All of that is abnormal. We call it out. They say we're lying, we're conspiracy theorists. When Donald Trump actually succeeds and the judge says, he's right, this guy was improperly appointed, the media's like, well, that's strange, that shouldn't happen, and it'll probably get the charges will probably come back anyway.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how they'll come back. They already know.
Well, it's an amazing thing. It might be too late to make this trend, but it's White Pill Monday. And this is just the third in the hat trick, J.D. Vance, but the one being he survived by a millimeter. The corruption is catching up with them in real time because all of this was corrupt from day one. And E. Jean Carroll lobbying to change that law so that she could sue within the window of opportunity. And she is she's guana crazy, that woman, and got away with it in a corrupt political system. The other New York case where Judge Marchand now has to suspend sentencing, if any, because they have to go back and revisit it because of the immunity ruling a little while ago. The corruption's catching up in real time. Finally, you could say the judiciary is doing their job, but they've sat on their hands for a critically long period of time. But this one, Clarence Thomas set out the...
Can I just read what he said?
Yeah, he had it in his decision in the Supreme Court. He
said... In this case, the Attorney General purported to appoint a private citizen as special counsel to prosecute a former president on behalf of the United States, said Thomas. But I am not sure that any office for the special counsel has been established by law as the Constitution requires. By requiring that Congress create federal offices by law, the Constitution imposes an important check against the president. He cannot create offices at his pleasure. By establishing, if there is no law establishing the office that the special counsel occupies, then he cannot proceed with this prosecution. A private citizen cannot criminally prosecute anyone, let alone a former president.
Let's go back to the iron law of woke projection. They accuse Trump of acting like a king. That's literally kingly behavior.
I love the part. I mean, what's so interesting is the president cannot create offices at his pleasure.
In other words, the president can't hire goons to go after his political rivals.
Exactly.
Which is what they did is basically what America
Although
fought
perhaps
against.
He'd be immune if he did so, if it was part of the official acts of the office.
But it is amazing. It was raised in an amicus, the argument that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed. Mm-hmm. Clarence Thomas set out the framework for any further ruling on that. And Eileen Cannon, the only judge doing her job in this, it's amazing. It was predictable. It's fascinating. And now they're going to call for the impeachment of Eileen Cannon.
Go ahead.
If these people really wanted unity, I mean, they would drop all these cases. And frankly, you can see that unity isn't really in the core of their being when they're already in meltdown, right, over this case getting dismissed. And right now, because President Trump's not in office, they're obviously going the lawfare route. But when he was in office, right, they impeached him twice. That's not very unity inspired, if you ask me.
Is Clarence Thomas will be the judge for the appeal? Or how does that work? You're Canadian, but maybe
no. Clarence Thomas, it would have to get up back to the Supreme Court. This will go to the Fifth Circuit or 11th
Well, you mean
Circuit.
unless AOC wins her impeachment?
Each justice controls certain regions.
Oh, I would not. I would have to defer to my bigger brain, Robert Barnes, on that one.
I don't know about that one either.
So this is the argument the left has for packing the court is that I think what are there 13 different.
Hasn't it been Pelosi was saying that too?
But we only have 9 justices, and it's because we never added more after the fact, and so some have more than one.
Tim, is that why we have 9 districts? Is that what that is? Like the 10th?
There's like 13,
more
I think.
circuits.
Tim's going to get in trouble. It's not packing the court anymore. It's expanding the court because packing is unconstitutional. Expanding is constitutionally required.
That also is
that was the argument they made.
Explain. Interesting.
And so I'm not sure how it works, but something to the effect of like each justice has oversees a certain district for when appeals are filed. Mm-hmm. And someone said Clarence Thomas is in this jurisdiction.
I'm trying to pull up the jurisdictions right now, but you're right. I mean, it's divided, and that's why occasionally you'll see, Alito has stopped this thing. This person has signed off on whatever. It would be funny if it was Clarence Thomas.
Let's jump to the big story of the day. Donald Trump selects
there's another one.
J.D. Vance is the VP.
Another white pill.
J.D. Vance. This is actually we got advanced warning because I guess government vehicles showed up to his house the other day. And then people tried
special motorcade.
Yeah, and people tried playing it off like, it's not going to be him. That was something else. And it's like Donald Trump faces an assassination attempt and the U.S. government immediately rushes to J.D. Vance's house, we know who the VP pick is.
Well,
and now it's official.
Now you know why Predict limits their bets to $850 because with that type of it's a white pill. I'm sorry,
but I do want to mention this because we were at the RNC earlier today, and we're hanging out at one of the little pub eateries in the big complex where they're doing everything. And I'm like, well, we're gonna stick around because Trump's supposed to make his announcement at some point, and we're assuming he's gonna come here and someone's gonna come on stage. Nah, he just posted on Truth. So we're sitting there eating cheeseburgers, and it's like he just posted it. All right, let's go back to the studio and we'll head back. But what do you guys think? J.D. Vance, good call?
Well, I really just want to thank President Donald Trump for confirming my months-long prediction that this would be the selection. You're really doing me a solid, President Trump. I appreciate it. No, I mean, I think J.D. Vance is such an interesting pick, partially because so many Americans know him because of Hillbilly Elegy, which I just think it had... publishing is sort of a dying industry in the day and age of social media, but that book had such a profound impact on the American public. And this was before he was in the Senate. It's about his, I'm sure all of you know, but it's about his life growing up in Ohio and Kentucky. It's about his family, the dysfunction that was there, the influence of opioids and alcohol and his rise through, the challenging circumstances he was in, into the Marine Corps, to Ohio State, to Yale Law, to Silicon Valley, working with Peter Thiel. I mean, now, Senate VP pick. It's fascinating. And for me, when I worked in Connecticut after college at a very, elite boarding school, it's all girls. And I worked with, feminists, Democrats, people who never would ever vote for Trump. And they talked about J.D. Vance because he had opened their eyes to a world and community that they just had no access to. And I don't think that is that can be understated as an impact and influence for his campaign. Of course, there are things you can complain about in terms of his record. Of course, I want to know what he would do about birthright citizenship and some other immigration questions. But I think it's a really interesting choice, especially from the man who gained prominence on The Apprentice.
Politically, I don't think any of Trump's VP picks was going to be significant. In 2016, I think he needed to choose Mike Pence to shore up the evangelical vote and give him more credibility from the establishment. But now he doesn't need any of that credibility. Trump is the Republican Party, so any vice president would do. I don't think J.D. Vance being his VP pick is winning over any additional voters. I think there needs to be some interesting politics at play with the governor now appointing the former junior senator to be J.D. Vance. Who was the governor against?
DeWine is the governor in Ohio. And I mean, we've talked about this, if it opens up, maybe he'll appoint Vivek Ramaswamy because he's also from Ohio. I mean, it is interesting that Trump picked someone who everyone points out is a never Trumper. I mean, it's not insignificance, the sort of transformational.
That's unity.
Story.
That's what that is. Well, that is unity.
What it is, I think there
unity with the never Trumpers.
Well, there's a good joke in there that there's no you in their unity, but okay, bada bing. His VP pick was absolutely critical because it needs to be assassination insurance. And there were a number of his VP picks who were not only
I saw a lot of tweets about this.
If you want assassination insurance, you pick Steve Bannon. J.D. Vance is not giving you enough of that insurance.
Eric Prince everywhere.
No, I disagree with that, but there were some people being floated who would be the exact opposite of assassination insurance. They would be a deep state reward for taking Trump out. Tim Scott, war whore, would be one of them. As far as I understood, the consensus was that Burgum also would be a useful replacement to Trump. J.D. Vance is a populist. He's good for food freedom. He's good for medical freedom. And he would not be any more of a pleasant substitute for Trump to the presidency. And there's a reason why the worst people on earth right now are freaking out over J.D. Vance.
How do you justify his past comments being a never Trumper?
Who gives a sweet bugger all what he said in 2016?
Well, it means he wasn't loyal from the beginning.
No,
and it means that he could have waited. And it means he could have just looked at the political trends of the time and I'm just going to follow in Trump's footsteps.
Or it means he's got a half-functioning brain and has seen that the world today is not the same world that it was in 2016.
He spoke about this tonight when he was talking to Sean Hannity, and he said, I was certainly skeptical of Donald Trump in 2016, but President Trump was a great president, and he changed my mind. And I think he changed the minds of a lot of Americans because, again, he delivered that peace and prosperity. I mean, he changed my mind. I wasn't pro-Trump in 2016.
I didn't vote for him in 2016.
But you were a never Trumper? Or, I mean, that's the thing. Never Trump, and now he's his VP pick.
I literally said I will never vote for Donald Trump over and over again.
Pretty sure Michael Rappaport has been calling Trump pig DICK for the last time, and now it's on the table.
It's on the table.
No, he took it off the table.
He did?
He did take it off the table.
He's not going to.
What an idiot.
For all the people who say that.
I always knew Rappaport was an idiot.
Until 2020. I was like, I will not vote for the guy. I was like, you guys, I understand why people like him. I'm not going to vote for him. It is what it is. And then late in 2020, when he released his second term agenda, I had a real conversation with some friends about it. I had been reporting on what was going on with him. And I said, I can't look at what's going on with wokeness, DEI, see Donald Trump attempting to stop it, and argue I would vote against it. I can't see what he did with getting our troops out of Syria, trying to at least, and trying to get a timeline for getting out of Afghanistan and argue against it. In fact, when you look at his 4 years, I had been saying the whole time, he's crass, he's crude, he lacks decorum. I wouldn't vote for the guy. And then I saw what he did in North Korea. And then I saw what he did with the Abraham Accords. And I was like, this guy needs 4 more years.
I thought
now he needs 4 more years. I'll say it right now.
I also think that JD Vance is like, look, I am always hesitant when people have ever uttered the words never Trump. I think we have like PTSD from so many people who have stabbed Trump in the back. But I do think it's funny that you bring up Steve Bannon. I would totally co-sign on Steve as VP. But I think there are actually some interesting similarities between Steve and JD Vance. And what I mean by that is that if you look at their background, right, they came from, family situations that were working class, or in JD's case, a little bit less than that, right? Hillbilly elegy. They worked their way up. They served in the military. They went to prestigious schools. They had the nice, cushy, venture capitalist investment banking jobs. But in many ways, they're class traitors in the sense that they left that world to become true, I think, to their core, fire-breathing populist types. And I think that men who are willing to walk away from that and kind of return back and fight for the common man, the American people, I think that speaks volumes. And I think that you see it in his actions. And frankly, I hope that President Trump has JD Vance, tackle and focus on issues like immigration, like ending what's going on in Ukraine, because you know what? JD Vance wants to have a political future, and he knows that he will not if he doesn't administer and get that border under control, if he doesn't stop the continuous flow of U.S. taxpayer dollars to Ukraine. I think that there's sort of an interesting chance with him to really make sure that he adheres to the MAGA base, because you know what? He has to prove himself. And frankly, I think it's better to have it'd be great to have someone who's, just like Trump and copies everything that he does, but we can't clone him yet. But you have someone who has to prove themselves. And I think that you can maybe in some ways find a silver lining there, because I think he's going to work in lockstep, and he's not going to be a traitor like Pence was.
I think he really speaks to the theme that is common in some parts of the right of redemption. It's obviously a Christian theme, but people love that on the right. And JD Vance is having that opportunity at redemption, and Trump supporters are embracing him. And it's good for him. One of the other key things here that I think we might be overlooking too soon, this informally makes JD Vance the successor to the MAGA movement as Trump's
if
VP
he performs,
in a term where Trump will be termed out, but informally, I'll say for now, he has the mantle more than anybody else on the right as, the MAGA successor, which will be significant in a post-Trump landscape. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, I think that you're right. It does put him at the forefront of the circle, but it still leaves room for a ton of people to do interesting things. I mean, the governorships, the state, the senators, the congressional roles that are...
Trump picked me to be his second in case anything happened to me. I think it's significant.
I think it's significant, but I think we have 4 years, and there are a lot of really talented people who could carry this. I mean, that's part of the nice thing about populism, right? Like, we don't have to look for the federal government for everything. And I think the criticism of JD Vance's past comments are important. I think this is one of the things that we now are in a position to do as people who, if you think of yourself as an America First person, if you think of yourself as someone who wants this more, this worldview to kind of spread and grow, is to say, what are we willing to do in terms of redemption, and also what are our standards for the people who are saying, well, actually, I want back in. I think that I want to be back on this train.
So there's hope for Nikki? There's hope for Nikki Haley?
She's
Christian. She's Christian.
Elad's fingers are crossed over here.
I will say...
she thought she was going to be the presidential nominee at the convention. If the plan had gone according...
I have to make this official now. Will Chamberlain formally owes money to a charity of my choosing. Aww. So he bet me it was going to be Nikki Haley, and I said, no way, it's not. And he said, gentleman's bet. And so the agreement is he would make a contribution to a charity if it was not Nikki. And when Trump came out and said, it's definitely not Nikki, he agreed that he lost. I said, no, we have to wait, because Trump just saying it's not enough. But now it's official. And so we'll find something good, maybe something for veterans or like Tunnels to Towers or something.
I just want to say one thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump down your throat when you brought up the Never Trumper from 2016. I've been hearing that all day. you can't penalize evolution. You can't penalize evolution. You can penalize hypocrisy.
Can you reward loyalty then?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, then let's reward loyalty then.
Well, I don't know
for somebody who was never a never Trumper.
I don't know what that would
For an
look like.
always Trumper.
But I'll
Trump
just say-
Jr.
Well, first of all,
Trump 2024.
I heard people on the internet floating the idea that it was going to be Barron as the VP.
Suddenly the U.S. would be Trump and son.
The quote here, put it on a mug, is you can penalize hypocrisy, but you can't penalize evolution, because if you do, you're basically forcing people to stubbornly stick to their views that they no longer hold. And so I reward evolution if it's sincere, and I will penalize hypocrisy if they bounce around like a broken
Redemption
arrow.
is a beautiful thing.
Elad's still mad. And I get that. I think it's fair to be mad. I think there are a lot of people who are incredibly talented who have been loyal to Trump since 2016 and who are vocal in this. But if Pence was the selection to win the evangelical vote, maybe having someone to win the never Trump vote to say, look, you guys can always return
He's such
home
an anti-never
is interesting.
Trumper too now, JD, I think, in my estimation.
Look, people who convert are always the most devout and most open about it.
Is everyone else also in love with JD's eyes? Because he's got beautiful, deep blue eyes, and that also.
And he has a son named Vivek.
They always say they think he's wearing eyeliner.
I know. It doesn't hurt that he's a very good-looking. He looks like a good-looking man,
and has a young family. I think that's interesting too.
Before we go to Super Chats, I want to circle back just to this post from Colin Rugg. He tweeted about 40 minutes ago, a police counter sniper team was inside the building that Thomas Crooks shot from during the shooting, according to the New York Post. This just keeps getting more insane. According to sources who spoke with the Post, Crooks was literally climbing on top of the building where the watch post for the snipers was located. The building, the AGR International Inc. factory in Butler, Pennsylvania, was being used by local police as a watch post for snipers to scan for the threats as the former president spoke on stage only 130 yards away, the Post reported. Crooks was reportedly spotted at the building 26 minutes before the incident. This sounds exactly like the plot to the movie Shooter.
Well, if I may steelman this, I'll steelman this for the sake of the people who still don't believe this was a Lee Hop. They thought he was a sniper. They didn't identify him as a citizen. They thought he was one of the crew, and so they let him be.
This is the explanation as to why the reason why the Secret Service on top of the barn that everyone saw didn't take action. The official statement was that they thought it was law enforcement where law enforcement was supposed to be. But that doesn't explain how 26 minutes went by with them taking a picture and reporting. I mean, I suppose...
I steelman it. I don't believe it, but I could steelman that argument.
I suppose the idea that Donald Trump, but for a few millimeters, survived is an astronomical insanity. I can accept fair argument. It was an all-around astronomical absurdity that happened today. And if you want to believe that that Trump getting missed was the grace of God, then perhaps you can argue the entire circumstance was an act of God to bolster Trump and save his election or something. I don't know.
Well, I would go less personal than Trump, but this will really redirect American trajectory in terms of where it was going versus where it looks like it's going to go now. The only, the biggest problem in calling this an act of God or divine intervention is that the gentleman died. You can't always prevent evil, but you can have something of a divine intervention to mitigate the consequences of that evil. And I believe that we just really saved the course of American future by what happened.
What was the name of the victim who was shot? Colin?
Corey Comprator.
Corey Comprator. I believe he has a GoFundMe, obviously.
As of last night, it had over $750,000 raised, which is incredible. I mean, people really want to rally around this family. And if you read his daughter's statement,
So sad and moving.
It's moving and sad, and it's terrible to have loss in your family. And I appreciate that they are willing to speak openly about what's going on, because I think a lot of people have questions and want to act. Like the fact that you could give to their family and say, like, we are sorry this happened to you. We want to
These
lift
were
you up
Trump VIPs too, diehard Trump supporters in the bleachers. They're hours before Trump got on to see Trump.
Well, second movie reference of the night. Everyone's seen Good Will Hunting?
Yes.
It's just like, it is wonderful that people will donate and support. There's not all the money in the world that can undo this tragedy for the family, and it's beyond horror.
We're going to go to Super Chat, so if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1 fight, fight, fight. And head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. That uncensored show, member call-in show, will be coming up in about a half an hour at timcast.com, so you don't want to miss that. And you, as members, help make this show possible. So again, timcast.com. But we'll read your Super Chats. Clint Torres, of course, the first, saying, howdy, people. Howdy, Clint. Shane H. Wilder says, I don't have anything to say that hasn't been said all weekend. Thank you, Tim, for donating Super Chat money to Corey Comprator's family. and all those affected, God bless. Now, I want to pause real quick. I was asked this morning if I would, and I said, that would be great. Maybe we can work out some kind of match or something. But here's why I didn't say anything at the beginning of the show. YouTube takes a cut. If you want to donate to the family of Corey Comprator, doing so directly would make more money go to that family. And I didn't want to do, if I was like, oh yeah, super chat us and we'll donate the money, it just gives YouTube a piece of that donation. So you should go to the family's GoFundMe. You can search for it and give directly. And I think that's better. However, that being said, all the super chat revenue so far, I will donate to the family. But I want to stress, if you do super chat right now, YouTube's getting 35% of that. You're better off giving the money directly to the family. I thought it would be a fun thing to do, but after I was reminded, like, yeah, but YouTube's going to take a huge portion. I'm like, ooh, that would kind of suck. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody, donate. Give the money to us, and then we'll give it to them, and then YouTube slices a chunk off.
And I would say I think it's meaningful to the family. I can imagine, seeing all of those donations come in. I mean, every $5 donation, every $20 donation is someone reaching out to them, and I just can imagine that is again a reminder of how many people are praying for and thinking of their family.
I read a report that said Trump might be going to the funeral. I could be wrong.
Wow.
That'd be
powerful. All right, Raymond G. MAGA Stanley Jr. It's MAGA, I'm told. Everyone got mad at me. I just watched the Milk Bar TV video. It took forever to get to the 2-minute mark. They had all the time and did nothing to prevent it. Weird. Shout out to Milk Bar TV on X. They took Trump's speech, the words he was saying, and synchronized all of the videos. So you get a direct timeline with these videos popping in and out. And it's insane that they're going, he's got a gun. They're screaming. And it's just like, 2 minutes go by.
Internet's crazy.
Where's that link? I haven't seen that.
I think I retweeted it.
Oh God, I have to see
Milk Bar TV. Watch. So the first video where they're filming the building and they're pointing at the guy, you can hear Trump in the background. So they took the live footage of Trump actually speaking and put them side by side, synchronizing his speech. Then when that video stops, it cuts back to Trump speaking. Then another video starts and you can tell where it is because of how Trump. It's masterfully done. And I was watching that. I was dumbfounded. I was like, you see the timestamp, 2 minutes and 1 second. From when they screamed, he's on the roof and he's got a gun, to when Trump got shot.
Did anybody identify who the woman screaming Crooks was? In one of the videos
really?
There was something, Crooks, what are you doing up there? Like, I don't know what's real anymore on the internet, so I'm reluctant to retweet. It sounded like and we didn't address the fact that both of his parents were apparently government psychological workers. Both of his parents were
they're with the government
counselors.
Or they're just registered?
And he worked
locally?
at like a nursing home or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Kid, he didn't look right in the head from the videos that we've seen, but I'm not going to diagnose yet.
I feel bad for him.
I will stress this all again, though. All of the super chats so far, I'm going to just make that direct donation to their GoFundMe. It's GoFundMe, right?
I don't know for sure. I think it is.
Look.
Yeah.
But if you guys, if I were to say give us super chats again, YouTube just takes a cut of all that. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't know, because it just seems like you guys should give directly to the family. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's tough. Maybe we would raise more money if we did it through the show, but then YouTube takes a 35% cut. So
there's a support for Butler PA victims. Oh, this is not specifically for Corey, but there's two. And the one that seems to be President Trump authorized is up to $4.5 million.
For the victims.
There's another.
There's someone else in critical, I believe.
He's been upgraded from critical to stable. A veteran of the Marine Corps, but he's also in a medically induced coma.
Wow.
And then you have people on the internet rejoicing in this and saying he shouldn't have missed, and that's what you get for going to a Trump rally. There are sick people out there who get
pretty horrifying.
No, it's horrible. They've been conditioned. When I say like mental illness, so this is like social media conditioning to say awful, insidious stuff, and you get rewarded with clicks.
To think that them hating other people is a good thing, and that it makes them morally superior.
All right. Paige Holland says he was shot twice. The first shot, Trump puts his hand on his ear. Second shot, he pulls his arm to his side. Slow the video, you can see what looks like a hole in his jacket. Maybe I'm mistaken.
So I interviewed the Wall guy earlier today. He was front row. I just ran into him at the convention.
Brick suit
guy. I'm sorry. Well, the Wall guy. He couldn't. He didn't have any information on that. I've seen the same picture as well, but I haven't heard anything confirming that elsewhere, other than
like a bullet went through his.
Yeah, like it hit him. Like it hit him in the bulletproof.
Like what if it went through like the loose part of the jacket?
From the image that was circulating, it looked like he might have been wearing a bulletproof vest.
I'm sure he was.
I'm sure he was, but there's no.
Nope.
You don't think?
I mean, what weapon was the guy using? It's a 5.56
or 2.23 are the numbers that I've heard. I don't know what they mean, but I heard those numbers.
Trump's going to need some pretty serious body armor.
Yeah,
those are high velocity.
We got to
rounds.
roll the tapes. We got to go back and ask President Trump directly.
Well, so again,
I think we would have known that also if it had like hit a bulletproof vest type thing like that. But no, we know.
Right?
Can you imagine it hit his? You like you say it's like doing a.
I'd like to know what caliber of bullet it was. That matters.
From what I understand, you'll know this more than me. It was a 2.23 from an AR-15 type rifle, but I don't know.
That's what's been reported. I'm pretty sure 2.23s are high velocity rounds. I mean, they don't have the same power as a 5.56, but I suppose 2.23 would make sense. I'm not a gun expert, but high velocity rounds are no joke. Like we've got, what are we, 17 Super Mag, I think they're called. It's been a while.
The 17 Super Mag. That's a fine firearm.
It's a high velocity small round and it vaporizes critters like into a fine mist. Causes cavitation because it's high velocity. It creates a vacuum behind it.
Just so Tim, I know nothing about firearms. And
I know nothing as well.
Vaporizes critters. You mean like it's raccoon type?
Right.
Critters.
So as it was explained to me at the store when I was picking up ammo for my 17 Super Mag, I think that's what it's called, and they're very small. And they said they're small, high velocity rounds that are intended for, getting rid of like dangerous pests in the yard or whatever, or in your fields. He's like, but understand, this thing's high velocity, so a mist will emerge, like it cavitates, it vaporizes them. I was like, really? That sounds brutal.
Well, also, if you want to appreciate that rabies is contracted by inhaling fluids, I mean, you might want to be well away from any animal that you're vaporizing. If it's a rabbit. So
there's a lot of people are saying 2.23 and 5.56 are the same. They're not the same. They are interchangeable cartridges. So I have several 5.56 AR-15s. 2.23, I believe, is a lower, as like a lower pressure. Again, I'm not an expert on this, so you can't put if a weapon is just 2.23, you can't put a 5.56 in it. If it is a 5.56, you can put a 2.23 in it. But don't take my advice. Talk to experts because I don't know anybody. What is this? 5.56 is a different neck dimension for higher pressure. Right, that's what I thought. Yeah. Morgan says there absolutely is concealable level 4 soft armor. Yeah. Someone mentioned 17 Hornet. I think that might be what I have. We just a lot of people on the left don't understand, or I shouldn't say on the left, but liberals, they just think bullets go pew. And I watched like some video, one of the videos of the people criticizing the shooter called what he had a shotgun and missed. And I'm just like, you ain't hitting the broadside of a barn from that distance with a shotgun. What are you talking about? or actually, maybe you'll hit the entirety of it and do nothing. They don't know anything about weapons. They don't know that there's different rounds for different purposes. There's different guns with different barrels. Like all of it serves different purposes. They think gun.
Yeah, the funny thing, I had yesterday's show. We started with a guy named Lynn Westover, who's a former sniper recon, and he was saying that although people complain like how could he miss the shot, that any trained sniper or anyone trained with firearms would be hitting a target of that size from 3 times the distance. So the fact that he did miss from as short as 1.4, 1.5 football fields is a miracle.
What some people were saying was that he clearly was training on an indoor range because he didn't account for wind. And my understanding is that your average person with a long gun, sighted properly and all that, can make a shot at that distance. However, considering wind, that explanation seems to make sense.
It looked like he was aiming for Trump's head, too. He wasn't aiming for a center of mass.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, going for this ridiculous Hollywood freaking shot, like, outrageous. The whole situation, obviously.
All right. Zouave Bro says, Viva, I clearly missed something. You moved to the U.S. with the fam. Yay. Countdown to citizenship when?
Thus far, temporary, but can't lie that the permanent is in the works. So Canada's in a very, very, very bad state. It's not getting any better. Obviously, the states have their own problems, but there were lines in the sand in terms of me leaving Quebec.
Have you considered just going to, say, like Eagle Pass and then walking across the river and requesting asylum?
I'll claim asylum if depending on what happens. I'll claim asylum because some of my tweets have gotten very mean for Trudeau.
We had Ezra Levant on Rebel News, and he was like, "I'm from the future. Canada is 5 years ahead of the U.S. in terms of how bad it is. I'm here to warn you." Like, it is interesting that Canada is always sort of looking down on America and our culture and our politics, but actually they're in chaos.
It's in free fall.
John Sola says, one of my wife's employees was a victim at the rally. He has had multiple surgeries, has broken rib and a lacerated spleen. His name is David Dutch. Please add this super chat to the donation for the victims. Absolutely, absolutely.
I think we'll hear a lot of stories like this. There was, I can't remember the congressman's name, but there was a congressman whose nephew was grazed by a bullet.
Ronnie Jackson.
Ronnie Jackson, thank you.
Wow.
And I mean, one of the most impactful things that came out to me within the first couple hours was that the CBS reporter's interview with the emergency room doctor who rushed to the aid of, I believe, the fallen firefighter. It is interesting to see, like the heroic acts taken in times of crisis. Now, he's, of course, an emergency room physician. He has probably seen a lot of terrible things, but that idea that it was like, I'm going to run to you and offer you aid and support, that's the culture I want to be in.
All the prayers for David Dutch.
Yeah.
Brecca Bash super chatted $135 saying 100 to the family, 35 to YouTube. God bless the family. I really do appreciate it. This morning, people asked if we would give all the super chats, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, of course, and we'll try and do some kind of matching thing. And then when we talked about it, it's like, yeah, but you're telling people to donate to you, and then YouTube's taking 35%. So, like, why they should just give the money to the family. And we did this with Sound of Freedom, and we matched the donations, but it is kind of, I don't want YouTube to just take. I think people should donate directly to the families, to the GoFundMe. Otherwise, it just gets muddy. And then I'm worried like someone's going to come and be like, Tim was doing that, and then YouTube was taking the money, and it's hurting the family. I don't want to. You just donate to the families, guys, and I'll make the donation too. Divine Beast Dancing Line says, lighter note. Mr. President on Steam is getting a massive influx of sales and positive reviews. The game has you play as The Rock to push Ronald Rump out of the way of an assassin's bullet. Wow. Very funny and would recommend if you had time to waste. Limerickman says, Tim McDonald, who's that?
Oh, Tom McDonald put out a track
of course,
the day after.
called You Missed, releasing the song 12 hours after the assassination attempt. That is...
I don't love
Wow.
that, I'm going to say.
You don't love it?
I just feel like, I don't know Tom McDonald, but it does feel like this, and I am Canadian, so I can say this Canadian guy being like, this is my moment to get a single, doesn't feel like the way I want to rally and unify.
It's a cynical reaction, and it's an understandable one, but the flip side, and I'm going to go more in line with this, he's enraged and he has to express it in the way that he can, and it's through his art.
And it's cool that art is there for that.
No, for sure. I would not, there are some artists I might impugn the presumed intentions of. I happen to love Tom McDonald, so I will not.
And I don't have anything against him personally. It's just this moment where I'm like, but.
Well, that's the question. It's like, how long do you wait to do these things? But no, I think his intentions are sincere. The artist who made the absolutely gorgeous piece of Trump, it's a painting. I forget his name. Tim, he's a New York guy. Oh, come on. He just put out a documentary as well. I'm not going to remember his name. Made a masterpiece of a painting of that moment.
Mm-hmm. Corto Maltese says the flag didn't invert into the shape of a cross, Tim. Here's a picture of it. Let me pull it up. There you go. I don't know.
That looks like a T to me.
Maybe he's saying it's a ninja star and not a cross.
I'm just saying.
When did that happen though? Because the photograph
afterwards. Yeah, the wind blew and then it flipped up.
This says
itself.
Before.
Oh, it was before.
Twisted and before.
Oh, okay, before the shooting. Angels watching. They call it. People are calling it the angel flag right before, or it looked like a bird.
There is something. There is something also to say about the composure of
Before
the
Trump came on
crowd
stage.
during the shooting. I see videos of many shootings online. Everybody's running everywhere. But during this, Trump supporters were very composed. There wasn't as much panic as one would expect, I think, at least for that. That also struck me when seeing all the footage of this.
Prinzi says WGN interviewed a former Secret Service agent, Tim McCarthy, who said that JFK was the only assassination not committed by a lone gunman. Huh. There was a witness report right away of a second shooter. We tend to get these. Don't know what it means. The stuff you get on the scene is usually different how they report it later.
You hear the sniper go off too. That's somebody could perceive
It's
that as a second shooter. Or just
Well, and I had heard that people thought the gunfire was fireworks, and then afterwards, because there was smoke and stuff, people were like, "Well, maybe it's to cover up something that's going on." I mean, I'm sure in that situation, it's terrifying.
Well, and also from some of the recordings, it sounds like they're being fired in pairs. And I thought it was. I asked, why is the guy firing pop, 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 pop? And I was told that that's the pop and the echo. So what you're hearing is one shot with an echo. But in RFK's in Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, I believe there were more than one gunman.
Well, and
if I'm wearing my tinfoil hat,
we didn't talk about this that much, but finally, I mean, Trump called for it this morning. Thomas Massie called for it right away. There's a couple different people who have advocated for RFK Jr. to get Secret Service protection. His dad's assassination is the reason that the government began extending Secret Service protection to major political candidates during the final 120 days before an election.
I'm channeling Robert Barnes right now. Biden wants his political adversaries to no longer be alive. There's no hiding.
Can't beat them any other way.
There's no.
Well, he's been trying.
Yeah, deny RFK Jr. Secret Service is nothing but hoping it happens. Making Trump, and I've been saying this for a while, making Trump go into big public areas for his court lawfare stuff. It's just, hey, let's get him as exposed as we can because we want this to happen to him. There's no denying it now.
All right. C. Jacob says, longtime Timcast member and listener, I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do. Because of you, I wake up every day to be better than I was yesterday and give my kids and wife the best life I can. FJB, Trump 2024. I do appreciate it.
Wow, what do you do to do that to people?
I tell everyone that the goal is just to be better than you were yesterday. So every day you think about what you can do today that you would make you better yesterday. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So, if you're asking, how do I get from here to there? It's really simple. Tomorrow you wake up and you do one push-up. One push-up. You can do one push-up. It's not even a big deal. It doesn't matter who you are. You do one.
That's like my friend who years ago when I was trying to start exercising, which I was loath to ever do. A friend of mine who was doing Pilates and stuff, she was like, just do it for 10 minutes. And even if you don't exercise, even if you just lay on your yoga mat for 10 minutes, that's progress. And I was like, oh, I can lay on a yoga mat for 10 minutes. But after 2 minutes, you feel dumb. And so you start doing exercise.
You do one push-up. And then the next day, you do one push-up again. But maybe you might be like, I could do another one. It's no big deal.
Yeah, because then you
you mark them down.
Yeah, you feel
Then you mark
better.
them down. And then after a year, you're like, I got to do 50. And then you're doing 50. It's actually really easy to be able to increase the amount of push-ups you can do. And it's really easy to lose them too. That's an important thing. If you get into it and you do 50 push-ups in one go and then you stop for a while, you'll come back and be like, whoa, yeah. So you got to keep it up.
Well, now I work out every day.
You just got to be better than you were yesterday. That's the way you do it. Wyatt Kaldenberg says, David Dutch, 57, and James Copenhaver, 74. They are invisible. Don't forget them. They are July 13th fallen brothers too. They need help too. Shout out. Absolutely. Dystopian Lucidity says, prayers for the family of the fallen. Man. Jason Hutchinson says, those boss ladies sure did a bang-up job providing security for Trump. Go Queens. How many Secret Service agents were female? Like 4?
Just too many. That's the only answer.
No, but was it 4?
It looks like at least 4. I mean, it could be up more than that. It's hard to see with all the images.
I think one of the issues also is the head of the FBI. I forget her name. Not necessarily...
Cheadle? Kimberly Cheadle?
Yes, and the allegation is not, or the accusation is not that she's necessarily a DEI hire, but that she's just corrupt and incompetent. Now, how she got the position is one thing, but politics has infiltrated. This is Dan Bongino's take on it. Corrupt, incompetent, and politics has invaded the FBI, and who knows why they were so lax with security.
All right. William Kelly says, prayers for the Comprator family. Trump 2024. I hope the family has someone who can take legal action for all the influencers defaming their family. I completely agree. And you got to make sure you assume in Texas, right?
Yep. 1.5 billion.
You know what? I said this in the morning, and I want to just say it now for anyone who missed the morning live stream that I did. Corey Comprator exemplifies what every man hopes and wishes they will be if they are ever called to that action to action. Because I know most men have probably wondered to themselves or asked themselves, what would they do if the time came? And nobody knows. You want to believe that you will be the man who will jump in the way of bullets to save your family, and you're scared you might not be. I mean, I shout out that line to Dickie Barrett from Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. I'm not a coward. I've just never been tested. I like to think that if I was, I would pass. Think, look at the tested, think there, but for the grace go I. I'm not a coward. I'm afraid of what I might find out. And I told this to Dickie when he rejected the mandates, got fired from his job, and stood up for all of that. I was like, it's funny, after 30 some odd years, you were tested and you passed. And so what I say for Corey Comprator and his family, he exemplified exactly what every man hopes they could be if they have to. And don't know for sure. But I know that wherever he is now, he is even here on this earth and in the on the other side, whatever that may be, he is celebrated because he did what he had to do, and that was his duty. He saved his family. He shielded them from death. Let's grab some more super chats. Cody McPherson says, shout out to Corey. Every man should aspire to be like Corey. After this weekend, I encourage everyone to read Jack Poso's new book, which I can't type because Google, remember, go to the gym. It is Unhumans. And yeah, shout out, man.
Yeah, I've been reading it. It's quite good.
S.A. Federale
It's an
says,
enjoyable read as well.
S.A. Federale says, anyone remember how Joe basically had all dogs that were trained to attack and he left them all with Secret Service agents? Or how we all thought that keeping the JFK files secret was to protect the CIA? Maybe it was to protect the Secret Service.
Maybe all the Secret Service started quitting after they kept getting bitten by Joe Biden's dogs.
That was one of the early lies of the administration, too, was that they kept lying about the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was a lefty reporter who got up in the press room and asked Jen Psaki, like, how many times has there been attacks by the dogs? And then finally he was like, what else have you lied about?
Maybe after a few
If you're
bites,
lying about the dogs, what else?
And by the way, where are those dogs right now? They might not have euthanized them the way Chrissy Nome did it, but those dogs are no longer among the
No,
living.
they've been rehomed. They're with family friends, They just get to live on a farm.
mean
I
at
thought
the
I would have to
farm?
correct issue a correction. Yeah, that dog's no longer there.
Two of them. This happened twice.
Michael Deal says ladder was just purchased by him at Home Depot. Is that true?
Shut up! I haven't heard that.
No
I haven't heard
way.
that. Maybe someone.
Then he
just-
comes
He comes walking up with
a ladder.
A
well, the
weapon
picture
and a ladder.
I saw looked like the ladder was just something propped up against the wall. So I don't know.
Well, there's going to be a receipt for that literally. So we'll wait for that evidence.
James says libs of TikTok and others have been calling out individuals who post about the shooter missing, nurses, PA firefighter, etc. Cancel culture okay now? I don't know how I feel. Morally just against evil. Yeah, I was having a conversation about this earlier. I don't care to defend people who want to destroy our rights and are attacking us on a daily basis.
Well, yeah, sorry, I could feel that one, but I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
I was going to say, if you're a communist, but you also have defended and advocated for free speech across the board and think that in your utopia, free speech is paramount and you defend rights, then I'm going to defend your right to free speech. If you're a communist who gloats and says, too bad that you got banned, sorry, then I'm going to be like, well, you get the world that you asked for. These people that are cheering for what happened to these individuals, they cheer for censorship. Why would I come out now and be like, oh no, how could you ban them? I'd be like, they got exactly what they've been asking for. They're begging these companies to ban people. The company said, okay, and banned them. Well, okay, I guess.
Well, I'll say nobody's trying to make their stupidity illegal. And I'm not going to go with it's not cancel culture, but consequence culture. It is not cancel culture to say when you make statements that are fundamentally incompatible with your job, that you then suffer consequences
But they have to be fundamentally incompatible with your job.
True. And a nurse who says...
Like teachers who do drag shows for toddlers, that's fundamentally
And
in contradiction
firefighters
with
and
your
nurses
job.
who say they wanted bad things to happen, they should not have their job.
Absolutely. Like a pilot saying, I support certain very
Plane
bad...
crashes.
Yes. Fired. It's not cancel culture. That is, you make statements that you're free to make that are incompatible with your role in this in your job.
And this is the lie, the double standard, the false standard. The left came out and said things like, "Oh, so you're for cancel culture?" Now it's like, whoa, hold on there a minute. I never said you couldn't get banned for being a dick and doing things. What I'm concerned about is, for one, Twitter 1.0 had incongruous rules between the left and the right. There was not a single standard of censorship. It was that the left was getting everyone on the right censored and the left could say whatever they wanted. The problem was inequality. So you did not know how to navigate the system. The idea for cancel culture initially was Sarah Silverman, who I think is atrocious, got fired from a job because 10 years prior she did blackface. That's cancel culture. That's stupid. If we said right now, guys, we're kind of over the blackface thing, please don't do it, and she came out and said, oh yeah, and then did it, I'd be like, well, I can understand why people got offended by her and fired her. She's coming out now to intentionally insult and berate people. That's a bit different from, hey, we found out she did a joke 10 years ago when everyone thought it was acceptable and now she's losing her job. Or the race car driver who got dropped from his sponsor because his dad said a racial slur in the 80s. That's cancel culture. Cancel culture to me was things that were, we are going to take away your job for things that you didn't know were wrong in the first place and you have no opportunity to correct for.
What if they're things that, okay, so you said cancel culture is we're going to take away your job for, things that you didn't know were wrong and you transgressed and you didn't know.
But like wrong. A long time ago.
Right.
Right.
So what about something where you make a statement that you fully believe in And then the people who, are in charge of keeping you hired say, we don't like your statement that you made in your free time, so you should get fired.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
So like Amy Eileen Ham put up a billboard in Vancouver and it said, I heart J.K. Rowling. And she was dragged before the Human Rights Tribunal for transphobia.
And
Human
Rights Tribunal is very different.
She was dragged before it by the College of Nurses and Midwives.
Right, that's very different.
This is Canada.
This is Canada. So her professional body, her union, said you don't deserve to have a career in nursing anymore.
I get
and now
it.
she doesn't.
A tribunal is very different from you work for a company and you are causing negative press and causing damage. And first, I think there's a test of reasonableness. If you're an athlete and you make a statement that is offensive, like Gina Carano, for instance.
Mm-hmm. This is a good example.
She said, we should not be like, we don't want to be like it was in Germany where people are demonizing their neighbors. They did not come out and say it is offensive to make that statement. They came out and lied about what she said and said she was accusing people of being Nazis or something. Mm-hmm. She didn't do that. She said, we don't want to demonize our neighbors, and they lied. That's a problem. That I do not agree with. If a company came to you, here's how I think it should go. You work for a pizza company. Mm-hmm. You then go outside and scream something shockingly offensive, costing that company business. The boss comes to you and says, we are losing customers because of what you were doing. I think it's reasonable for me to ask you, please don't do that. If it's incompatible with how our business operates, and if we lose money, we can't operate, and other people lose their jobs because of the actions you're taking are offending people. If they then said, I don't care, I can say whatever I want, I have free speech, you can be like, that's true and a fair point. Maybe this isn't the right place for you. I have no problem with that.
So that's,
now,
I guess, basically what happened to Amy.
If you buy a billboard that says, I heart J.K. Rowling, and you should be allowed to do it, and they went to her and said, people are getting really mad. A billboard is a serious endeavor to make, and it's putting a lot of heat on us. If you want to take serious public action at this level, which will damage us, maybe you should resign. I also don't have a problem with that. The fact that they pulled her before a human rights tribunal is very different. So you've got to understand that the balance of reasonableness between a private employer's rights and cancel culture.
Well, it's a hospital. What about Jordan Peterson being dragged before the licensing board?
See, that's absurdity. That's insanity.
Well, it's absurdity also because the I heart J.K. Rowling is, first of all, I don't think there's anything offensive about it.
She's a women's rights activist. I mean, let's just say what it is.
Even if there's nothing fundamentally offensive about that, but set that aside. There's certainly nothing incompatible with a nurse's obligation and duties. If she said, I hate fill in the ethnic minority and put that up as a sign, as a nurse, I might question her ability to treat people of that ethnic minority, and therefore she can get fired. But I love J.K. Rowling. Everyone loves Harry Potter,
but
except for me.
Even then, it's all about what is reasonable for a private business.
Well, it's a hospital.
There's government rules at play there.
And there's government rules, and it's very, very different. The government, Canada is awful, that they shouldn't be involved in these things. I'm saying, if I sell pizza and you go outside and scream, pizza's awful, don't buy it, you're fired. Sorry. Like, are you nuts? I run a Domino's, and my employees...
So if I'm a nurse and I say men aren't women, then obviously I should be fired.
I didn't say that. I said...
No, but I would say if you're a nurse and you say children should get gender affirming care, I'd say, yeah, you should be fired.
Right. What I'm saying is...
So that's why you don't want to be Canadian
What
anymore.
I'm saying is there's a reasonableness to if someone gets fired for saying things that are incongruous with the business. Like, if somebody works at Domino's Pizza, but is telling customers and posting online, pizza is disgusting, unhealthy, don't buy it.
So who gets to decide? Online activists, the company,
wait,
HR?
I don't understand how this is difficult. If I own a pizza place and you work for me and you say pizza's gross, don't buy it, get out. Like, I'm trying to sell pizza here, dude. Does everyone have to lose their job because you're driving business away?
What if it's, I don't really like tomatoes?
See, there's a reasonableness here, right?
Right.
What's reasonable?
So I'm saying...
I don't like tomatoes. I don't care. You don't like tomatoes.
So there have been a lot of online campaigns.
And so the difference between cancel culture
and it's like,
and someone
hey,
getting fired for saying things is...
do you know that your employee said this on Facebook?
Right. It's an absurdity to think that no one can get fired for saying things in the public that are detrimental to a business.
How do you know they're detrimental? Why would it necessarily be detrimental if someone has a political view? Are
you suggesting that there's literally no circumstance where an employee could damage a business and they should be allowed to keep working there forever?
I'm playing devil's advocate over here.
Right. So I don't understand what you're missing.
What I'm
in
missing?
some circumstances, it is reasonable to fire a person for damaging your business, and in other, it's cancel culture because it's not.
I actually happen to think you guys are saying the exact same thing, but in a different way. What's going on in Canada is ridiculous because it's weaponizing politics. But the bottom line, the cancel culture concept has been abused, or the term has been abused to be diluted from what it was. What it was pulling up absolutely irrelevant things that were highly politicized, usually exceeding the useful shelf life, to be used as a pretext to go after people for political reasons.
Like, I'll just put it this way. Like, if someone who worked at Timcast was reaching out to members and telling them to cancel their membership and to stop supporting us, I don't understand why I would have them keep working here.
No, that makes sense.
Exactly. And so there are certainly things you can say. What if someone at Timcast started advocating for child sex changes? Should we be like, well, I guess that's, we're okay with that.
What if it was their own child?
Yeah, like
Would you fire someone for transing their kid?
Well, that's more of a difficult position.
Yeah,
that's not the same.
tough.
Well, no, but that would involve, the question would be, would that person be taking a public position that I've done this to my kid, therefore? Or versus a purely family decision.
Let's do this, because we do got to go to the members show. So we'll carry this conversation over. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. 1 like equals 1 fight. Go to timcast.com, click join us. The members show will be starting in a couple of minutes, and we're going to take callers. You guys as members can call in, and we're going to be less family friendly, and it'll be uncensored. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and follow the show at Timcast IRL. Natalie, do you want to shout anything out?
Sure. X and Instagram at Natalie G. Winters.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me at Libby Emmons on Twitter, and check out everything we're doing at the Post Millennial and Human Events. And thanks for the opportunity to have spicy conversations on this show. I love that.
Absolutely.
Viva Frei and vivabarneslaw.locals.com for the best above average law community out there.
What's up, everybody? I'm Elad Eliahu. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to check out my field reporting, check us out at Timcast News and on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for hanging out. Hang out with us on the after show. Hannah Claire?
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys could join us this night. It's been a very crazy weekend, so I'm actually glad that we could all debrief together. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. Follow our work, like Elad said, at Timcast News, especially this week. Elad's on the ground everywhere, and we have an amazing team. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. I'm on Twitter at hannahclaireb. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
Well, actually, give me 1 second, because I think...
Okay, I'll just keep talking over here.
Is there more?
Well, I think Trump is live right now.
No way. Where?
He's got... let's pull this up.
What's the ear look like?
Yeah, Trump's got a bandage on his ear.
What a legend.
His first appearance.
Oh, that you could kind of see.
And he put off, he said he was initially advised to delay coming out, and then he decided not to.
Oh, next to JD. Wow.
All right, so we'll head over to that members-only show right now, and then we'll see you all over at timcast.com. We'll see if there's any statements or what's going to be happening with Donald Trump. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in a second.